Chapter 279. Don't waste it. Chen Hao glanced at the sparkling red nirvana elixir. His eyes flashed with a hint of complexity as he stared at Chen Shui and said, "No, you won't die. You definitely won't die. Nirvana elixir is a healing elixir for the dead. As long as you still have a breath, even if your internal organs are destroyed, it can help you recover. Quickly eat it." When Chen Shui heard Chen Hao's words, she thought that Chen Hao didn't know the power of the nirvana elixir and hurriedly said. As she spoke, she reached out and stuffed the nirvana elixir into Chen Hao's mouth. "Don't worry, I won't die. It's just a waste to eat it. I've already swallowed the nirvana elixir a long time ago. Your injuries aren't light either. It's better for you to eat it. Don't waste a month on healing," Chen Hao said calmly. After he finished speaking, he sat up cross-legged. It was obvious that he couldn't hold on any longer. If it were anyone else, they would have long since died from the severe injuries to their physical body. However, Chen Hao's soul wasn't affected at all. The only thing that was affected was that his meridians had collapsed and his internal organs had lost their functions. He relied on his mental strength to support himself. "What are you afraid of? I'm not asking you to return it. Such heavy injuries, swallow it," Chen Shui said as she once again stuffed it into Chen Hao's mouth. Chen Hao's mind moved and a condensed energy suddenly pushed Chen Shui away. He said in a firm tone, "I said I don't need it. I have the immortal bloodline. At most 3 days, it will be as good as new. Eat it yourself. I'm going to start healing." After speaking, Chen Hao ignored the wide-eyed Chen Shui and directly entered the state of healing. Immortal bloodline. Chen Shui looked at Chen Hao in surprise. Her gaze was directly focused on the huge wounds on Chen Hao's body. What shocked her was that the shattered internal organs and muscles were actually trembling slightly. As if they were alive, they were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Phew! Chen Shui heaved a long sigh of relief. She, who had completely calmed down, suddenly felt bursts of intense pain coming from her body. Her injuries were also very serious. Although Chen Hao had blocked most of the attacks, she was not spared. She hesitated for a moment. Although she was reluctant, Chen Shui still put the nirvana pill into her mouth. Although she could heal herself, it would take time. Even in this space where the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was extremely dense, it would take at least 10 days to half a month for her to fully recover. And a month later, she was certain that between Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei, at least one of them would be guarding the exit. She had already seen the strength of those people. Even if she ran away, she would not be able to escape unscathed. Strength was everything. Not to mention that Chen Hao wanted revenge. Even she was not willing to let those people go. Only by killing those people could she calm the anger in her heart. Boom! Billows of nirvana pills began to spread in Chen Shui's dantian. Red flames seemed to rise from Chen Shui's body. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes, her internal and external injuries disappeared without a trace. Although the powerful nirvana pill was not like Chen Hao's dantian where there was a lot of energy left, there was still a lot left and it was directly absorbed by Chen Shui's dantian. The entire process only lasted for about 10 minutes. Then Chen Shui slowly opened her eyes. 2 rays of light shot out from her eyes. Although her true qi had not recovered to its peak state, it had recovered by about 50%. Not only had her physical injuries completely healed, but her physical strength had also improved under the refinement of the nirvana pill. One had to admit that the power of the nirvana pill was still very useful even for those of the original level. Phew! Chen Shui let out a long sigh and looked at Chen Hao, who was not far away. At this moment, Chen Hao's body was shrouded in blue flames. A figure that seemed real and illusory was circling above his head. It was the legendary divine beast Vermilion Bird. Seeing this scene, Chen Shui was only slightly surprised for a moment before she understood what was going on. Could it be that he has gathered all 5 divine beasts? Chen Shui pondered. He didn't use the Nirvana Phoenix but used the Vermilion Bird. Obviously, he gave the Phoenix's inheritance to Tantai Lian. Otherwise, the Nirvana Phoenix's healing speed would definitely be faster than the Vermilion Bird. What a fast recovery speed! When Chen Shui's gaze locked onto the bloody holes on Chen Hao's body, she could not help but exclaim. In just over 10 minutes, Chen Hao's wounds had healed by about 10% without any elixirs. At this speed, Chen Hao would be able to fully recover in less than 3 days. What a freak. It seems that it's really difficult for me to surpass him. To be able to obtain the inheritance of the 5 divine beasts, his body must contain an even more shocking secret like what Mother said. Moreover, he just said that he had eaten the Nirvana pill a long time ago. That's the Nirvana pill. When Mother gave it to me, she cautioned me not to use it unless it was a last resort. It can be seen how precious it is. Even the star-picking sect can't have it. Where did he come from? Plus the immortal bloodline. The more Chen Shui thought about it, the more shocked and puzzled she was. She could only stop thinking about it. Everyone had their own secrets, and so did she. Slowly standing up, Chen Shui only had time to size up the surrounding space at this time. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the city and the sky was already extremely dense, and this small cultivation grotto heaven was even denser to an unimaginable degree. Chen Shui did not need to deliberately refine it at all, as her inner yuan recovered rapidly. It was definitely twice as fast as when she cultivated in the outside world. Moreover, the entire space was filled with a faint space attribute mystery. 7 colored clouds were circling in the sky, as if they were rotating all the time. She had already comprehended the true essence of the space attribute to the peak of the elementary level, and was about to break through to the small success stage. Her perception was far more profound than Chen Hao's. Her powerful soul perception spread out, and Chen Shui suddenly had a clearer understanding of the space she was in. The entire space was not big. There was only one huge mountain that was 90,000 feet high. The mountain peak was like a flight of steps. Every 1,000 feet it rose, there would be a circular platform that was about 1,000 feet wide. There were a total of 9 levels, and when it reached the peak, it had already become pointed. What was even more amazing was that the peak was spewing out dark blue water. To be exact, it was not water, but the legendary spirit spring. Although Chen Shui did not get close to examine it, her powerful perception could sense the pure energy contained in the spirit spring. The spirit spring spewed out from the peak, making the entire mountain peak look like a waterfall. It was divided into 9 levels that fell vertically, and the rumbling sound resounded through the heavens and earth. At this moment, Chen Shui and Chen Hao were at the flat ground that extended out for about 100 miles from the foot of the mountain peak. Beyond that, there was a 7-colored light that was obviously the boundary of the space. Chen Shui's powerful soul perception could not penetrate it at all. He still needs 2 or 3 days. I'll go take a look first. Hiss. Chen Shui glanced at Chen Hao. After confirming that there was no problem, she turned into a stream of light and flew towards the mountain peak. There were no demonic beasts in the small cultivation grotto heaven, so Chen Shui was not worried that Chen Hao would be disturbed. In the entire space, there would not be a third person other than the 2 of them. Chen Shui was slightly surprised. She originally wanted to fly to the pool at the foot of the mountain, but when she reached the edge, she was bound by an invisible energy and could no longer move forward. This energy was of the space attribute. Even with Chen Shui's comprehension of the space attribute, she could not move it at all. Do I have to start from the peak? Regarding the situation of the small and medium-sized cultivation grotto heavens in the Sky City, before coming in, her mother had already explained some things to her. Everyone's opportunities were different, and the ones they entered were also different, but there was one thing in common, and that was that any cultivation grotto heaven had a test. The higher the talent and comprehension, the greater the harvest. Chen Shui once again tried to reach the platform at the top of the mountain, but she still could not reach it. After thinking for a while, she determined that the first test of this small grotto heaven must start from the peak. Sure enough, when Chen Shui rushed to the peak, she stepped onto the pool of water that was only 300 feet in radius without any hindrance. The entire peak was like a small sunken lake. The waterfalls were falling from this small lake. What a strong energy! The lake water was incomparably clear, reflecting the rainbow-colored light in the sky. It looked beautiful and illusory. Numerous small whirlpools were connected together. With just a glance, Chen Shui could see the profoundness of the spatial attribute contained within. Moreover, with her comprehension of the space attribute at the peak of the initial stage, She could easily control this mystery. Therefore, it was not that she was not surprised. What really surprised her was the spiritual energy fluctuations emitted by the lake water. This kind of spiritual spring was definitely purer than the spiritual water used for alchemy in her sect. Moreover, it also contained an ancient aura that had existed for tens of thousands of years. Let's not wait for him. There's a total of 1 month. I'll start first. Anyway, cultivating and comprehending here will not affect him at all. At most, I'll just share the treasures with him, Chen Shui said softly. After saying that, she jumped into the small lake without hesitation. Poof! The moment she entered, Chen Shui was immediately enveloped by the clear spiritual spring, and strange whirlpools instantly swallowed her graceful figure. She directly disappeared from the lake. What shocked Chen Shui was that she felt that she could see through the whirlpools that contain the space attribute at a glance, but when she really stepped into the lake water, the whirlpools that enveloped her directly made her lose control of her own body. It was not that her space attribute realm was not good enough. She was certain that the space attribute essence contained in the whirlpools was definitely only at the initial stage. She was at the peak of the initial stage, almost reaching the initial stage. However, this whirlpool displayed the use of the initial stage of the space attribute essence to a realm that Chen Shui could not imagine at all. It can be used like this. That's great. If I can learn this way of using it, my combat power will at least increase by 30%. This is too ingenious. At the same time that Chen Shui was shocked, she was also extremely excited in her heart. After pondering for a moment, she decisively took off the tattered clothes on her body. Her graceful and exquisite body was instantly immersed in the clear whirlpool. She was like a mermaid. Every inch of her skin and every strand of her mind was immersed in learning how to operate the whirlpool. Second update. There are more updates at night. It may be a little late. I suggest that everyone not wait and read it tomorrow. Chapter 280. Who? In less than 2 days, Chen Hao, who was sitting cross-legged, spat out a mouthful of blue flames. The vermilion bird circling above his head suddenly let out a cry that resounded through the heavens and earth. It turned into a stream of light and entered Chen Hao's forehead. Crack, crack, crack. Chen Hao's body shook slightly, and the sound of bones cracking could be heard. It was like the sound of metal clashing, filled with endless power. I didn't think that this injury would allow me to fuse with the vermilion bird's inheritance and reach the 2nd level of heavenly fire. My body is twice as strong. Chen Hao's face revealed a trace of relief. Chen Hao had comprehended 3 heavenly Dao laws in the 7-star cave heaven, including the essence of fire. After he came out, although he didn't deliberately cultivate the vermilion bird's inheritance, he naturally completed the 8 steps of fusion with the vermilion bird and reached the peak of the 1st level. His heavenly fire also reached the peak of the 1st level. And this time, Chen Hao wanted to use the vermilion bird's talent to quickly recover his body. He didn't expect that in just 2 days, his heavenly fire would reach the 2nd level. Sensing the breath of heavenly fire, Chen Hao was sure that even a peak late-stage golden core expert would find it difficult to resist the 2nd level of heavenly fire. What a pity! I only had a moment of enlightenment, and I reached the peak late-stage golden core. If those guys didn't interrupt me, I might have already reached the half-step nascent soul stage. Fuck them. I hope they haven't given up and are still waiting, Chen Hao said coldly. Sensing the energy in his body, he was full of confidence. He had tasted Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei's attacks. Before he entered, he couldn't compete with them. But now he was at the peak late-stage golden core stage, and his body was twice as strong under the refinement of the 2nd level of heavenly fire. His overall strength had definitely increased by more than 4 times. If he met the 2 of them again, Chen Hao had absolute confidence in fighting them. Chen Hao wasn't sure if he could kill them because these top geniuses all had their own trump cards. Unless they were on the verge of death, no one could be sure who was stronger than the other. Releasing his powerful soul perception, Chen Hao immediately transformed into a beam of light. He did not even attempt to go to the foot of the mountain. Instead, he directly charged towards the peak. It wasn't that Chen Hao's soul perception was much stronger than Chen Shui's. It was just that Chen Hao had roughly glanced at the waterfalls and judged that the first stage of this heavenly abode must be at the peak, because the lower the waterfalls, the stronger the power would be. He had already been delayed for almost 2 days, and he didn't want to delay any longer. He recovered so quickly. Chen Hao had just appeared above the small lake on the peak when Chen Shui, who was wearing a blue dress and had wet hair, appeared in front of Chen Hao and asked in surprise. What made Chen Hao slightly surprised was that there were no traces of water on Chen Shui's clothes, and her face was still covered by a black veil. However, Chen Hao could faintly see through the veil that Chen Shui's beautiful little face was flushed red. "Are you waiting for me?" Chen Hao asked with a frown. "No. I just heard the vermilion birds cry, so I came out." "Chen Hao." Chen Shui wanted to say something, but hesitated. It seemed that she wanted to say something, but in the end, it was a little difficult to speak. If it wasn't for the vermilion bird's cry waking her up, the current situation would have been extremely awkward. "What's wrong? If there's anything, just say it," Chen Hao said with a little puzzlement. This lake is a rare spirit spring. It contains extremely pure spirit chi of heaven and earth. The vortex that is condensed contains the true essence of the space attribute, and is extremely mysterious. If we want to comprehend it faster, the only way is to let our bodies completely come into contact with the spirit spring. "Oh, that means we have to strip naked, right? What's there to be conflicted about? We are siblings, so I won't have any improper thoughts. Don't worry, just do what you have to do. I won't peek at you. Of course, you also shouldn't peek at me," Chen Hao said with a serious expression on his face. But in his heart, he was also conflicted. The relationship between siblings was not bad, but they were not related by blood. Although Chen Hao would not have any thoughts, the two of them being naked in this small lake with a circumference of only 300 feet would be very awkward. After all, one was gorgeously dressed, and the other was hot-blooded. It was absolutely impossible to say that there was no temptation. Chen Hao was not Lu Xiaohui, and Chen Shui was also not a virgin. "What are you thinking about?" Chen Shui's face suddenly turned red. "What I mean is, can you be a few hours later, at most half a day's time, and I will be able to completely comprehend it and enter the next level. Anyway, you haven't comprehended the true essence of the space attribute. If you enter this lake, the vortex will swallow you and it won't be beneficial for you to comprehend it. As long as you are in this cave, the clouds in the sky and the aura in the air all contain the mysteries of the space attribute. The only thing missing is the spirit chi of heaven and earth. Okay, you continue. Call me when you're done." Chen Hao glanced at the densely packed small vortexes in the lake, and immediately understood Chen Shui's meaning. Indeed, if he did not control the space attribute, it would not be beneficial for him to comprehend it. After Chen Hao finished speaking, he directly turned into a stream of light, and flew directly into the clouds in the sky that were rotating in a strange way. "He shouldn't be peeking, right?" Chen Shui stared at Chen Hao entering the clouds and muttered. Soon after, she bit her lips and plunged into the lake. When she entered the depths of the lake along with the vortex, she took off her clothes. Once again, she became a naked mermaid, immersed in the comprehension. Chen Hao drilled into the clouds and was immediately surrounded by clouds. Thick spatial energy instantly swept Chen Hao's body. When Chen Hao was fighting with the ancient demon beasts, he was already infinitely close to comprehending the true essence of the space attribute. Although his epiphany was interrupted, it also allowed Chen Hao to obtain endless benefits. At this moment, there was only a thin layer of paper between him and the comprehension. Chen Hao could feel that as long as he was given a little time in this environment, he would definitely be able to smoothly comprehend it. This was indeed the case. In less than 4 hours, Chen Hao was no longer affected by the rotating clouds. His entire person seemed to have merged with the clouds. As the clouds rotated, the clouds rolled and unrolled. It was very uncomfortable. It was also only at this time that Chen Hao realized that the rotation of the clouds contained a trace of the use of the space attribute's true essence. However, Chen Hao had an understanding that ordinary people simply could not compare to in terms of the use of power and the heavenly law. In a moment he had grasped the mysteries of the rotation of the clouds. Soon after, Chen Hao directly pounced on another cloud that was rotating even more violently. Sure enough, as Chun Hao expected, this cloud contained another kind of technique. Amazing! On the path of cultivation, what really depends on is comprehension and practice. This small cultivation paradise is definitely a real cultivation paradise. It's absolutely not something any secret manual can compare to. This kind of usage of the true essence of the space attribute is the most basic technique, but any one of them has the ability to turn something rotten into something magical. Although my Taoist scripture is strong, without sufficient cultivation experience, it's impossible to cultivate it. Moreover, when Chun Hao spoke up to hear, he pondered for a moment, and his eyes shone with a radiant light that was filled with confidence. He said, "Since I've come to this world and want to reach the peak, I should use this world as my foundation. Without enough understanding, it is absolutely impossible. Whether it is the unique techniques of this world or the more powerful Taoist scriptures, in the end, they all belong to others. Only when I truly master them and use them to comprehend my own unique techniques, will it be my Tao." Mysterious and mysterious. Chun Hao, who was immersed in comprehending the use of the space attribute's true essence, had a trace of understanding in his mind. Along with the clear appearance of this trace of understanding, Chun Hao's aura quietly underwent a slight change. This change, even Chun Hao did not notice. But the mysterious existence that was immersed in the depths of his mind suddenly woke up at this moment. At this moment, he clearly sensed that Chun Hao's cultivation state and path had undergone a shocking change. As if there was a feeling that it was completely out of his understanding and control. This feeling made him shocked and worried at the same time, but at the same time, he also faintly had a trace of anticipation. Although his usefulness might be greatly reduced in the future, or even become dispensable, after experiencing countless masters, the cultivation path that was like repeating over and over again had already made him lose interest. Perhaps Chun Hao, who seemed to develop the slowest and weakest among all his masters, would bring him a brand new journey. "Chun Hao, I'm done." You've already comprehended the space attribute's true essence? Just as Chun Hao was floating among the clouds, faintly mobilizing all the clouds, Chun Shui, after 6 hours of hard work, finally mastered the use of all the space attribute's true essence contained in the lake water. Appearing above the lake water, she shouted to the sky with a trace of shock in her eyes as she looked at Chun Hao, who had merged into the clouds. "You have to hurry up, otherwise it won't be long before I catch up again." Whoosh! As soon as Chun Shui's voice fell, Chun Hao's figure flashed, as if penetrating through the void, and directly appeared in front of Chun Shui with a confident smile on his lips. "Don't even think about it. My space attribute's true essence has already advanced to the small perfection realm. It's still early for you. Without 7 days, you can forget about passing through the lake water at the peak. What if I catch up with you? Then I'll let you comprehend first, then I'll comprehend later." Chun Shui said, "Don't waste time, there's only 1 month. If you keep waiting like this, it's not good for either of us. This is a rare opportunity. If you care too much about these red tape, it will only affect your state of mind. Go." After Chun Hao finished speaking, he did not say anything more on this issue and directly plunged into the lake water. The corners of Chun Shui's mouth curled up slightly as she thought to herself, "Well said. If I were a man, I would say the same. This grotto heaven is based on the space attribute's true essence, and it's my domain of expertise. If I lose to you again, Chun Shui suddenly stopped mid-sentence and did not continue speaking. She shook her head, threw away all distracting thoughts, and directly rushed to the platform thousands of feet below. Third update, a chapter to make up for what I owe. That's the third update today. Thank you to the brothers who voted and tipped. Thank you. I've let everyone down. I'll cover my face and escape. Continue to work hard. Strive to repay it as soon as possible. Come to vote. Chapter 281. Hiss hiss hiss. The moment Chun Hao dived into the lake, although he was already mentally prepared, the whirlpool that far exceeded his own space attribute realm almost instantly made him fall into a state of helplessness. However, sensing the pure spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the true essence of space attribute, and the strange rotation of the whirlpool, not only did Chun Hao not resist, But he also quickly took off his clothes and immersed himself in enlightenment, allowing himself to rotate and float in the whirlpool. What an exquisite space attribute technique! What dense space attribute mysteries and spiritual energy of heaven and earth! Chen Hao clearly felt that he was enveloped by an even more profound space attribute mystery, and every cell in his body was absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the spring at an astonishing speed. But what surprised Chen Hao even more was the technique of using the space attribute contained in the whirlpool. As expected of a cultivation holy land, not to mention a month, even a day can be greatly benefited. If I can use this space attribute mystery in the platinum sky-splitting slash, it will definitely increase its power by a lot. If I combine the platinum sky-splitting slash with the solitary sword technique, what kind of power will it have? Chen Hao thought excitedly in his heart. The platinum sky-splitting slash was one of the Taoist techniques of the Great Five Elements art. It was also the only technique that Chen Hao could cultivate among the 3,000 great Taoists recorded in the Taoist canon. In the outside world, with Chen Hao's current strength, he could only use it 3 times before exhausting his true essence. It was extremely difficult to cultivate. But in this small lake, the pure energy of heaven and earth in the spring could allow Chen Hao to be in peak condition at all times. What did this mean? It meant that Chen Hao's efficiency in cultivating the platinum sky-splitting slash here would definitely be more than 100 or 1,000 times stronger than outside. After all, if he used it 3 times in the outside world, he would have to swallow a large amount of elixirs and meditate to adjust his breathing, and he would definitely not be able to recover to peak condition without 4 hours. But now he did not have such scruples. This is great. I'm not in a hurry to break through this first stage. When I completely master the technique of using the space attribute and comprehend it to the same realm, I'll practice my sword here. With the obstruction of the whirlpool, it's more suitable than the 7-star grotto heaven. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Voila! In the small lake on the platform 10,000 feet below, Chen Shui had finally completed the second stage. She still didn't know about Chen Hao's situation, so as a precaution, she put on her clothes at the bottom of the lake and rushed out of the small lake. Boom 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 walla walla. Why is there such a huge commotion? What surprised Chen Shui was that there were terrifying roars coming from the peak of the mountain. Numerous water arrows shot up to a height of a few hundred feet, like numerous water dragons that scattered in all directions. Could it be that he isn't comprehending, but resisting? This idiot. Whoosh. Chen Shui instantly turned into a stream of light, as if she had teleported. In the next moment, she appeared on the peak. However, as soon as Chen Shui stepped forward, she cried out in surprise and instantly retreated. She looked away and blushed. Chen Hao, what are you doing? Ha ha ha. Sword training. Chen Hao laughed loudly, and he seemed to be extremely excited as he spoke. At this moment, Chen Hao only wore a pair of shorts. When Chen Shui went up, he just happened to shoot up into the sky with the 5-element sword in hand, and his body emitted a profound and terrifying aura. Sword training? This spirit spring lake is for you to comprehend the profundities of the spatial attribute and utilize it. Aren't you wasting your time? Chen Shui calmed her shy mood and turned around to look at the shirtless Chen Hao as she spoke. Haha, I've already comprehended it a day ago. Quickly start on the next level. Don't worry about me. Swoosh. Chen Hao plunged into the lake once more. What surprised Chen Shui was that Chen Hao actually didn't follow the circulation of the whirlpool, but went against the flow and blasted out with his sword. A strand of terrifying, profound, and peerlessly fierce sword intent shot up into the sky, and it caused Chen Shui's mind to tremble even though they were a few hundred meters apart. What kind of secret technique is this? Chen Shui said in surprise. In a short period of less than 6 days, Chen Shui's cultivation had already risen to the peak of the nascent soul stage, and her comprehension of the spatial attributes' profundities had completely stabilized at the perfection stage. Her combat strength had absolutely increased by more than 2 times compared to before stepping into the small-scale grotto heaven. But at this moment, when she sensed the might of Chen Hao's sword, she shockingly discovered that if Chen Hao used this sword to attack her, it was absolutely not something she could withstand. Chen Hao had only just advanced to the peak of the golden core stage. How is it? Is it powerful? After Chun Hao slashed apart several whirlpools with his sword, he floated in the air above the lake, and his peerlessly handsome face was filled with a natural wisp of arrogance as he spoke. Powerful? Is this the secret technique of your star-picking sect? Chen Shui couldn't help but ask. No. Why? Do you want to learn it? Yes, Chen Shui said without hesitation. Although she was a little embarrassed, it was only a little. No matter what, she was still Chen Hao's sister, wasn't she? They were family, so how could she treat him like an outsider? Besides, Chen Shui could sense that if she could learn Chen Hao's sword, her combat strength would definitely increase by several times. This was not the time to be polite. No problem. I'll teach you now. How much you can comprehend, and whether you can master it or not will depend on yourself. Do you have a jade slip? Hiss. As Chen Hao spoke, he directly appeared beside Chen Shui and put on his Taoist robe at the same time. Although he wasn't naked, Chen Hao didn't mind facing Chen Shui bare-chested, but he was afraid that Chen Shui would feel uncomfortable. Yes, Chen Shui said a little excitedly. Although she was his sister, she didn't expect Chen Hao to be so straightforward. After all, in the world of cultivation, no cultivator would easily impart their secret technique to others. As he spoke, he took out a jade slip. Once a cultivator entered the golden core stage, they could use their mind to leave their will and pressure in the jade slip. The secret technique stored in the jade slip came from this. Chen Hao received the jade slip. His mind moved, and powerful mind energy poured into it. In an instant, his entire aura underwent a shocking change. Obviously, if Chen Hao wanted to truly fuse the ultimate technique into the jade slip, then he had to allow his mind to fuse into the mental state he had when he executed the ultimate technique. Only in this way would Chen Shui be able to comprehend even more from the jade slip. A moment later, Chen Hao passed the jade slip to Chen Shui and said, "This secret technique is formed by fusing two secret techniques. How to fuse them is up to you to comprehend it yourself. I can only impart the most basic to you. The first is the solitary sword art. It has a total of 9 moves. You should know that my sword moves have always been without moves. This was the strength of the solitary sword art. Everything in the world, including cultivation techniques and array formations, can't be perfect. There must be flaws and weaknesses. And the solitary sword art is precisely the flaw attack. Just comprehending this alone can let your combat strength increase greatly. As for what degree you can unleash, it will depend on how deep your comprehension is. Varies from person to person. The second type is the Great 5 Elements Art's basic cultivation technique, Platinum Sky-Splitting Slash. This is my strongest attack right now. What? Great 5 Elements Art? Chen Hao's description of the solitary sword art already made Chen Shui abnormally excited. But what made Chen Shui even more surprised was that the second type was actually the Great 5 Elements Art. This was the legendary 3000 Great Tao. How could Chen Shui still endure it? That's right. How did you obtain it? Chen Shui could not resist asking. Secret. Chen Hao smiled slightly and said mysteriously. After a slight pause, he continued. Platinum Sky-Splitting Slash is the most ferocious basic cultivation technique in the Great 5 Elements Art. In the outside world, with my current strength, I can only execute it 3 times before exhausting all my energy. Therefore, unless it's a last resort situation, I absolutely cannot execute it. This is a life-saving ultimate move. You're no exception. The reason why I'm practicing the sword here is because the spirit spring can let me be in peak condition at all times. After you've comprehended both the solitary sword art and platinum sky-splitting slash, you can try to fuse the 2 mental cultivation techniques into one. At the same time, you can also fuse the mysteries of space into it. The power will exceed your imagination. I'll try. Chen Hao said it casually, but Chen Shui was clear that for any mental cultivation technique to fuse with another type, without going through countless trials and tribulations, it was basically not very possible. Even people with extremely high comprehension ability would find it difficult to do. Moreover, the slightest carelessness would result in a backlash. Alright, make the best use of the time to cultivate. You decide whether to cultivate the sword art or comprehend the mysteries of this grotto. A total of 1 month's time is probably far from enough. And Chen Shui responded and said, "Thank you. No need to thank me. Before father appears, I should temporarily take care of you on behalf of father. No matter what, we're a family." Chen Hao smiled slightly and said, finished speaking, not giving Chen Shui, who had a conflicted expression, to say anything. He directly dived into the lake. "What temporary father taking care of me? I'm elder sister." Seeing Chen Hao dive into the lake, Chen Shui curled her lips and said. Then, a wisp of a sweet smile appeared on the corners of her mouth, and a different kind of warmth rippled out in her heart. Since she was young, she simply did not enjoy any familial affection until she met her master, who was also her mother. But all along, the relationship between her and her master was only that of a master and disciple, and she simply did not think that she was her master's daughter. How could she experience familial affection? But these words of Chen Hao made her feel warm, a warmth that she had never felt before. Yes, a family. If they were not a family, who would be able to pass on the ultimate technique that cultivators yearned for even in their dreams? If they were not a family, who would be able to disregard their own safety and sacrifice for the other? Chen Hao had sacrificed for her, but hadn't she sacrificed for Chen Hao as well? Holding the jade slip in her hand, Chen Shui's figure flashed and arrived at the third stage. She did not directly jump into the lake on the platform, but instead sat cross-legged and merged her mind into the jade slip. Boom! The will that Chen Hao left behind immediately transmitted the mantras of the solitary sword technique and the platinum sky-piercing slash into her mind. At the same time, at the moment when the jade slip shattered, the figure of Chen Hao dancing with the sword appeared in Chen Shui's mind, and she sensed the state of mind contained in Chen Hao's every move and style. Phew! It's simply impossible to completely comprehend it in a short period of time. Looks like I can only cultivate after I go out. Otherwise, a month's time will be wasted. After a moment, Chen Shui opened her eyes and muttered. After saying that, she directly rushed into the even more mysterious lake. First update. Chapter 282. On the 7th day of entering the small cultivation grotto heaven. Break. Splash. The small lake with a diameter of 3,000 feet was split into two by Chen Hao's sword. Under the mysterious and sharp sword light, the entire lake was forcibly split into two distinct pieces. However, it only lasted for a short 2 seconds before it was broken by the crazily spinning vortex, and the two pieces merged into one again. Phew! Chen Hao let out a long breath. His eyes shone with joy as he thought to himself. The solitary sword technique, platinum sky-splitting slash, and space attribute mystery have merged into one. The power of this sword is 5 times stronger than the pure platinum sky-splitting slash. I used it skillfully and used less than 1/6 of the energy. This means that even in the outside world, I can still use 6 sword moves. It's better to practice here. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time. Next level. Whoosh! Chen Hao turned into a ray of light and appeared in the small lake thousands of feet below. If he had enough time, Chen Hao would not have entered the next level so quickly. However, the small cultivation grotto heaven only had a month's time. If he wanted to get the most out of it, Chen Hao could only challenge the second level, which was more powerful. Splash, splash. Boom, boom, boom. The 1,000-foot waterfall flowed down from the top of the mountain. Its aura alone was many times stronger than the small lake at the top of the mountain. The outer sky waterfall of the star-picking sect could not be compared to this. The terrifying vortexes were filled with endless power, as if they could devour everything. With just a glance, Chen Hao discovered that this level was much stronger than the first level, whether it was the realm of the space attribute's true essence or the way it operated. Puff! Taking a deep breath, Chen Hao dived into the lake naked. The space attribute mystery at the peak of the initial level. The moment he floated in the whirlpool like a rootless duckweed, Chen Hao was sure that the space attribute mystery contained in this lake was much stronger than the first level. The power and mystery contained in the whirlpool were also more terrifying. However, with the experience of the first floor, the pressure on Chen Hao was not as terrifying as Chen Hao had imagined. It seems like the time limit of the cultivation grotto heaven is quite reasonable. Everything was difficult at the beginning, and only the first level required the most time. Passing through all 9 levels was not difficult at all. Furthermore, the profound mysteries of the space attribute contained within it should be limited by the number of levels. Otherwise, no matter how talented one is, it would be difficult for one to pass through all 9 levels. Chun Hao immersed himself in the comprehension and operation of the vortex, and began to comprehend once again. Brother Yu, it's done. On the 27th day after Chun Hao and Chen Shui stepped into the miniature grotto heaven, 5 figures gathered together. They were none other than Yu Chengfeng and Han Ji from the Southern Sea Archipelago. At this moment, Han Ji had a confident smile on his face as he said, "Everything within 1,000 feet is under my array. As long as that woman comes out, she will definitely fall into my array. If Jian Wufei and the other 2 come over, they will not be an exception. Brother Yu, you can sense it." Hearing Han Ji's words, Yu Chengfeng and the other 3 immediately released their senses. A moment later, Yu Chengfeng's face revealed a look of praise as he said, "Not bad, even with my senses, I can't sense any aura at all. Brother Han, you are indeed a little divine armament. Brother Yu, you flatter me. This array talent is only a small matter compared to my talent. It's not worth mentioning," Han Ji said without hesitation. He was not being humble, but speaking the truth. In less than a month's time in Sky City, although they did not enter the miniature grotto heaven, the strength of the 5 of them had increased by quite a bit. Han Ji originally thought that his improvement was great, but when he sensed Yu Chengfeng's aura, he realized that he was nothing. Although Yu Chengfeng's half-step nascent soul cultivation level did not increase at all, his entire aura had become sharper. The murderous intent that he unconsciously let out made Han Ji and the others tremble in fear. One had to know that they were all top geniuses, and their cultivation level was 1 level higher than Yu Chengfeng's. What did this mean? It meant that Yu Chengfeng, who was half-step nascent soul, could easily kill them. This kind of killing was not something that normal cultivators could do. Gasp! Boom! On the 27th day, a few hundred miles away from Yu Chengfeng and the others, a mountain with a diameter of 1,000 feet was suddenly cut in half by a bright sword ray. The moment it was cut in half, there was only a slight sound of something breaking through the air. The entire mountain only sank down a few centimeters. But then the top half of the mountain exploded with a loud boom. The sky was filled with rocks and debris. Like a swarm of locusts, they contained the power to destroy the heavens and the earth as they shot into the sky. Impressive. A figure who had just arrived was extremely shocked as he stared at Jian Wufei, who was a few hundred feet away. His heart was filled with shock. This figure was Liao Guangye. Gasp! Liao Guangye instantly flew to Jian Wufei's side and stared at the smooth surface of the mountain that had been cut in half. His voice was filled with shock as he said, "Wufei, you have cultivated the 4th level of the Mountain River Sword technique?" Peak of the 4th level. Jian Wufei slowly sheathed her sword and said coldly. Her beautiful face shone with a hint of pride. "This city in the sky is indeed a holy land for cultivation. It's beyond my imagination. Not only have I cultivated the Mountain River Sword technique to the peak of the 4th level, my Mountain River Sword technique has also reached the peak of the early stage of the Great Completion. Now it doesn't matter if Liao Guangye and Jian Wufei are here or not. I alone am enough. But just in case, I'll bring them along." Jian Wufei thought to herself. Thinking about Yu Chengfeng's terrifying attacks, she was not sure how much Yu Chengfeng had improved in this month. Not long after, another cultivator rushed over as well. "Let's go," Jian Wufei said and flew up. "Hide your aura. This time, we have to make sure nothing goes wrong. It'll be best if we can kill Yu Chengfeng and the others first. Then we just have to deal with that woman from the eastern continent. Plus, they definitely know that we won't give up. Maybe they're already waiting for us." Wait. When the 3 of them were dozens of miles away from the gate, they saw Yu Chengfeng and the others from afar. This caused Jian Wufei to stop. "What's wrong?" Liao Guangye and Jian Wufei asked in confusion. "It's a little strange. Yu Chengfeng's battle power is about the same as mine. He shouldn't be so brazen. Otherwise, what happened last time might happen again. And that woman escaped. If I were him, I would definitely hide my tracks. It would be best if he could kill me in one fell swoop." Jian Wufei said with a frown. She came from an ordinary background and could be said to be a nobody at the bottom of the food chain. To be able to reach her current position, she had experienced countless life and death situations. She had experience and survival skills that other disciples did not have. Her survival skills were definitely not something an ordinary person could compare to. Wu Fei, you mean there's a trap? Liao Guangye said with a frown. Swordsman Wu Fei frowned and nodded. How can this trick fool me? You guys just wait here. I'll go check it out and make a decision. As Jian Wu Fei spoke, her aura completely disappeared in front of the two of them. Her entire body seemed to have turned into a river. Evidently, she had used the River Mountain Sword Dao's special ability. She was the River Mountain, and the River Mountain was her. Although they could see her figure, they could no longer sense her aura. If she still hasn't come out, Jian Wufei must have seen through something. Whatever, I don't believe that she can still hold back when that pretty girl comes out. We'll just take her down then. On the 30th day, seeing that the time of the small cultivation cave was getting closer and closer, and Jian Wufei and the others still had not appeared, Yu Chengfeng said casually, "Walla walla. Rumble rumble." Inside the cave, in the small lake at the foot of the mountain, Chen Hao stood right under the waterfall with his upper body bared. His body withstood the waterfall that was 90,000 feet high. His streamlined muscles glowed with a sparkling, blood-red luster. From Chen Hao's expression, one could tell that the pressure he was withstanding right now was unimaginable to ordinary people. Chen Shui, who had already completed the 9 tests and raised her space element to the early stage of the Great Completion stage, stood by the lake and stared at Chen Hao. Her eyes were filled with shock. Only now did she truly understand how monstrous Chen Hao was. He was not someone she could compare to. Whether it was comprehension or cultivation talent, he was much higher than her. Especially his physical body talent, it was at an unimaginable level. Who could withstand a waterfall 90,000 feet tall? Not to mention the high density of the spirit spring. Even normal water was enough to kill a peak golden core realm expert. As for Chen Hao, he had actually been cultivating under the waterfall for an entire day. Puff! Finally, Chen Hao, whose body seemed to be emitting a bloody light, could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Immediately, his figure flashed and flew out of the waterfall. He came to Chen Shui's side as if nothing had happened and said, "Finished?" "Yes." "Why did you leave it for me?" Chen Shui looked at the shirtless Chen Hao and asked. She was already a little used to it. At the 8th stage, Chen Hao had already surpassed her and entered the last stage first. But Chen Hao clearly comprehended the mystery of the pool water, but he did not go to the bottom of the lake to check. "It's the same whoever gets it. I was in a hurry to cultivate, so how could I care so much?" "What did you get?" Chen Hao asked curiously. "A high-grade spirit artifact sword that contains the law of space. The name of the sword is Sky Smasher. And the Heaven-class high-grade sword technique, Sky Smasher sword technique, and 100 supreme-grade primordial crystal stones," Chen Shui said as she took out the sword technique, and the 100 supreme-grade primordial crystal stones. "The sword is yours. I will cultivate the sword technique first, then I will pass it to you. As for the supreme-grade primordial crystal stones, let's split it in half, okay?" Chen Hao said directly after glancing at it. "No. I can have the sword, but you can have the supreme-grade primordial crystal stones. I don't lack primordial crystal stones. As for the sword technique, we will do as you say. Your comprehension is a little better than mine," Chen Shui said. "Okay. There is still 2 more hours before we have to leave. Unfortunately, I can't take this spirit spring with me. Let's recover to our best condition first and prepare for battle." "I can't wait any longer, haha." Chen Hao put away the top-grade primal crystal stones and the secret technique jade slip into his storage space without hesitation, and his peerlessly handsome face flickered with a wisp of excitement and faint arrogance as he spoke. After he finished speaking, he dived into the lake again. Second update. Today is the second update. I have something to do tonight. Everyone, don't worry about Dark Mountain not paying back the debt. Within a month, Dark Mountain will definitely pay back the debt. Chapter 283. Then, Chen Shui jumped into the lake as well. She knew that once they walked out of the grotto heaven, they would face an unavoidable battle. Their opponents were all geniuses from the southern sea islands and the western continent. One side had 5 people, the other side had 3 people. She and Chen Hao were only 2 people. Even though the 2 of them had improved a lot in this month, it was still unknown if they could win. Also, because they entered the grotto heaven, they might face the combined attacks of their opponents. Now that I've reached the peak of the early nascent soul stage, my mastery of the space element has reached the peak of the early nascent soul stage, and my mastery of the chaotic thunder sword has reached the 5th level, sky-piercing thunder. With the addition of the sky-shattering sword, I'll be able to infuse the space element into it, and its power will definitely be doubled. With this kind of strength, I should have a 70% chance of defeating Jian Wufei. Chen Shui thought to herself. She had seen Jian Wufei and Yu Qingfeng's terrifying battle strength. Even though the 2 of them were half a step away from the nascent soul realm, Jian Wufei had already condensed her elemental sword intent. As for Yu Qingfeng, his folding fan was even more shocking. It was obvious that he had reached the peak of the initial stage of the wind element. No matter who it was, the 2 of them were not easy to deal with. Plus, they had partners who were equally terrifying. Even though the others were weaker than Jian Wufei and Yu Qingfeng, they were all top geniuses. In a battle of life and death, no one could be sure how strong they would be, especially the super geniuses from the southern sea islands. Most of them had ancient bloodlines. No matter how Chen Shui thought about it, she didn't think that she and Chen Hao had a high chance of winning. The only thing she was sure of was that with their state of mind and their understanding of the space element, it wouldn't be hard for them to survive. That was enough. Half an hour later, Chen Hao and Chen Shui stepped out of the lake at the same time. Chen Shui saw the excitement and confidence on Chen Hao's face and couldn't help but ask, "Chen Hao, how confident are you?" I said, "They will all die. Jian Wufei and Yu Qingfeng are very strong." Jian Wufei had comprehended an elemental sword Dao, and her cultivation level was very high. One of them has comprehended the quintessence of the wind attribute to the pinnacle of initial mastery, and his body contains the legacy of the ancient era's bloodline. It's still unclear how strong he is. Just these 2 alone are already difficult for us to kill, let alone the other 5. Indeed, the attacks of those 2 fellows were indeed very strong. In a month's time in Sky City, he might even be able to improve. However, I'm a dead person now. Chen Hao looked at Chen Shui, the corners of his mouth slightly raised as he spoke. If Chen Hao had a 10% chance of success, he would dare to try, let alone a 100% chance of success. However, this did not mean that Chen Hao would stupidly fight against 8 super geniuses with just the 2 of them. As long as he could make use of all the factors that were beneficial to the battle, he would not hesitate to use them. You mean a sneak attack? What Chen Shui was most worried about was that the arrogant Chen Hao would fight the other party openly. But now, seeing the expression on Chen Hao's face, Chen Shui heaved a sigh of relief. This Chen Hao was undoubtedly the most terrifying Chen Hao. That's right. They definitely think that I'm dead. When we go out later, I'll conceal myself and you'll appear in front of them. Okay. They're coming out. Don't activate the array for now. Wait for Jian Wufei and the other 2 to attack. Yu Qingfeng said confidently. In these 2 days he had already investigated. Although he did not find Jian Wufei and the other 2, he was certain that the 3 of them were waiting nearby. He did not believe that Jian Wufei would be able to hold back when he took down Chen Shui. Idiot. What Yu Qingfeng and the others did not expect was that even though their conversation was limited to a small area, it still did not escape Jian Wufei's ears. They also did not expect Jian Wufei to be within a few hundred feet of them. The world only knows that my Mountain River Sword technique is peerless, but they don't know that the Mountain River Sword technique's strongest point is concealment. If it wasn't for the fact that I'm limited by my cultivation level, it would be easy for me to kill you all. Jian Wufei thought. She was only half-step nascent soul. Although the Mountain River Sword technique's concealment effect was strong, she did not dare to get too close. After all, she was only concealing her aura and not her body. In this area that was already empty, there was nowhere to hide. Otherwise, she would have attacked already. I wonder what kind of expression you'll have when I break your array? Jian Wufei's beautiful face revealed a trace of evil and smugness. She was not proficient in arrays, but before it was activated, she could still break it. Any array formation needed energy crystals to operate. Hanji's array was no exception. Although the auras of the energy crystals were all hidden, it wasn't difficult for Jian Wufei to dig them out since she knew of the existence of the array formation. Moreover, she had already finished this task a day ago. She just did not destroy it. This was because she knew that if she destroyed any of the energy crystals, Hanji, who had set up the array, would notice. So, she could only attack when Chen Shui was about to come out of the grotto heaven. Otherwise, after the other party captured Chen Shui, it would be difficult to snatch the treasure from Yu Qingfeng's hands. This was because she could feel that Yu Qingfeng's strength had increased by quite a bit. Jian Wufei was not sure if she could defeat him. If he wanted to escape after getting the treasure, she would not be able to stop him. Time was ticking by. Jian Wufei and Yu Qingfeng were both determined to win. However, they did not consider Chen Hao and Chen Shui. Instead, they saw each other as their biggest opponents. In their eyes, Chen Shui was a lamb destined to be slaughtered. The only thing that mattered was who could obtain it. SSSSSSSSSSSS. Jian Wufei and Yu Qingfeng's gazes locked onto where the door to the grotto heaven appeared, and their auras were released without restraint. Finally, there was a violent ripple in the air. The door to the grotto heaven was about to open. Chen Shui was about to be ejected. Ah, not good. What shocked Yu Qingfeng and the others was that at this moment, Hanji's expression suddenly changed. What's wrong? Yu Qingfeng asked with a frown. Ha. At this moment, Jian Wufei's proud laughter suddenly sounded, accompanied by a terrifying aura. Her figure appeared in front of Yu Qingfeng and the others. Whoosh whoosh. Meanwhile, Liao Guangye and the other disciple were flying toward them from 1,000 zhang away at a shocking pace. Boom. At this moment, a terrifying energy storm erupted in the air as the door to the grotto heaven opened. Kill. Jian Wufei did not hesitate. She stabbed out with her sword and attacked Yu Qingfeng. The brilliant sword light contained a terrifying sword intent. There was no other way. Yu Qingfeng and the others had already gathered near the door to the grotto heaven. She could not rob Chen Shui immediately. Therefore, the only thing she could do was to stop Yu Qingfeng and the others. Bitch, you think you can stop me? Break for me. Boom. With a wave of his fan, a 1,000-foot-long wind dragon containing a monstrous aura flew towards Jian Wufei's terrifying attack. The four of you quickly take down that girl. At the same time, Yu Qingfeng ordered. Yu Qingfeng had no choice. Jian Wufei's sword contained a power that he had to deal with all his strength. He had no time to deal with Chen Shui. Brother Yu, don't worry. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Hanji and the others instantly charged towards Chen Shui who had just appeared. At this moment, Liao Guangye and the other disciple also charged over, and sent out their strongest attacks towards the four of them. Liao Guangye and the other disciple did the same as Jian Wufei and stopped the four of them from approaching Chen Shui. The scene uncontrollably returned to the scene before Chen Shui, and Chen Hao stepped into the grotto heaven. Boom boom boom. It was also at this moment that the entire space began to tremble violently, and a mysterious aura drifted over. The 1-month spatial barrier of Sky City had officially been opened, which also meant that all the barriers that were divided into regions according to strength and potential no longer existed. The true danger of the trial was about to begin. Hanji, the three of you block those two for me. I'll take down this woman. The barrier has already opened. If more experts come, it will be even more difficult. We have to hurry. Among the 5 disciples of the Southern Sea Islands, the one whose strength was second only to Yu Qingfeng said sternly to Hanji and the others. This guy was called Sheng Guanyang. Okay. Hanji and the others didn't hesitate and directly influenced Liao Guangye and the other disciple. They all knew that Sheng Guanyang was right. With their talent, battle strength, and potential, they were definitely not far away from the late nascent soul stage experts, or even the peak of the late nascent soul stage. The main reason they were able to come here was because of their potential. Once some mid or late nascent soul stage experts came, it would undoubtedly be even more difficult to obtain the treasures on Chen Shui. No way. Chen Hao, who had merged with the world, was hiding beside Chen Shui and was a little shocked. Chen Shui also had a strange expression. They originally thought that they would have to face a terrifying attack as soon as they came out. They didn't expect that Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei's group would be unharmed, and would be in a fierce battle again. They're underestimating us. Haha. Chen Hao said to Chen Shui through voice transmission. Let's end this quickly. We have to leave here before the other experts come. Chen Shui said through voice transmission. Her aura instantly became extremely cold. However, she didn't use the sky-shattering sword. Moreover, it didn't seem to be very powerful. Ha ha ha. Little girl, do you still want to resist? Just give up and you won't have to suffer any physical pain. If brother Yu didn't choose you, I, Shang Guanyang, could kill you with one move. Capture her. Shang Guanyang said arrogantly. His strength was second only to Yu Chengfeng, and he sensed the fluctuation of Chen Shui's aura. He was absolutely confident that he could capture Chen Shui alive. First update. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote for it on Qidian. Come. Chapter 284. Hiss. Shang Guanyang condensed a true essence giant hand with a radius of 30 meters and directly covered Chen Shui. This true essence giant hand not only contained 100% of Shang Guanyang's strength, but also the aura of an ancient bloodline. The moment it was released, the energy of heaven and earth madly gathered towards the giant hand. Chen Shui could clearly feel the terrifying pressure contained in the giant hand. Obviously, although Shang Guanyang was arrogant, he was not careless at all. Although Chen Shui's aura was not strong, at this critical moment, he had to do his best to subdue Chen Shui as quickly as possible. Only by taking Chen Shui's treasures could he be at ease. At that time he could attack or retreat. It was not too important whether he could kill the 3 people from the Western continent or not. My dragon capturing giant handprint is a heaven-level technique. In this sky city, it can mobilize more spiritual energy of heaven and earth. With your strength, it's useless to resist. Haha. This dragon capturing giant handprint was not a simple offensive technique. Under normal circumstances, it was used by powerful people to capture weak opponents alive. It could mobilize the energy of heaven and earth for one's own use. Although Shang Guanyang felt that Chen Shui's aura was not as strong as his, before he used the dragon capturing giant handprint, he did not expect to subdue Chen Shui in one move. However, at this moment, to his surprise, the extremely rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the sky city actually allowed his dragon capturing giant handprint to exert twice the power of the outside world. Thunderclap ninth heaven break. Clang. Crack. Seeing that the true essence giant hand was only 30 meters away from her, and had firmly locked onto her aura, Chen Shui, who seemed to be weak, suddenly shouted and pulled out her sword in one breath. The high-grade spiritual weapon, the sky-shattering sword, suddenly emitted thousands of rays of light, and the 4th level of the chaos sword technique, the thunderclap ninth heaven was released. Rumble. When the true essence giant hand and the thunderous sword light met, there was a terrifying roar, and the true essence giant hand and the thunderous sword light disappeared at the same time. Chen Shui, who was dressed in a blue dress, had a cold light in her eyes. Her body swayed, and she raised her sword at a moderate speed and rushed towards Shang Guanyang. At the same time, Chen Shui's body exuded a kind of fleeting spatial aura, as if she could break through space at any time, making it impossible to lock onto her. A high-grade spiritual weapon? Good. I didn't expect you to be able to break my dragon-capturing giant handprint. Good timing. Do you think you can hide the true essence of the space attribute from me? Shang Guanyang instantly released his mind power to the maximum and fixed his eyes on Chen Shui. He was well aware that Chen Shui, who had become one with his sword and carried a spatial attribute aura, would very likely change his trajectory and deliver a fatal blow the moment he got close to him. Moreover, Chen Shui had a high-grade spirit sword in her possession. How could he dare to be careless? Die. Suddenly, when Chen Shui was still several hundred feet away from him, she actually lightly shook the sky-shattering sword, sending out an attack that could not be considered anything at all. At this moment, Shang Guanyang didn't feel any threat at all, but his intuition of danger, which was honed in life or death situations, made his hair stand on end. Without any hesitation, he gathered all his strength and struck out with his palm. He even stopped defending himself. Anyway, Chen Shui was right in front of him, so he could beat her back first. However, the moment Shang Guanyang withdrew his protective genuine essence and struck out with his palm, a silent sword light pierced through his head without any warning. He didn't even have time to scream. Hiss. At the same time, Chen Shui's figure suddenly disappeared in the void. What? How is that possible? Although Yu Chengfeng and the others were fighting, they were all paying attention to Chen Shui, especially Jian Wufei. At this moment, they were at a disadvantage because of the lack of manpower. Therefore, when Shang Guanyang tried to capture Chen Shui alone, she was already prepared. Once Shang Guanyang succeeded, she would not hesitate to take a blow from Yu Chengfeng to kill him. Yu Chengfeng naturally understood the situation. He exerted his cultivation to the maximum to hold back Jian Wufei, who was very powerful. As long as Shang Guanyang succeeded, they were destined to win. However, they had never thought that it would end like this. What surprised them more was that Shang Guanyang's death was not caused by Chen Shui at all. Even though they did not catch Chen Hao's aura, Chen Hao still exposed his existence when he killed Shang Guanyang. This guy is actually still alive. We can't let them escape. At this moment, Jian Wufei and Yu Chengfeng tacitly avoided each other. Their figures flashed, and they suddenly dashed out in two different directions. Before they arrived, their terrifying will and strong killing intent covered the sky and the earth. Hiss. Hiss. Two strange spatial fluctuations as fast as lightning dashed towards Liao Guangye, Han Ji and the others who were also shocked and had stopped fighting. Heavenly thunder. Platinum sky-splitting cut. Although Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei were fast, Chen Hao and Chen Shui were even faster, especially Chen Shui, who had comprehended the space property to the peak of the first stage of the greater mastery. It was as if she had teleported. She was even faster than Chen Hao. She appeared above Han Ji and performed the 5th level of the chaotic thunder sword. As for Chen Hao, he performed his most powerful attack, the platinum sky-splitting cut. Crack. Hiss. Two completely different sounds suddenly appeared while Han Ji, Liao Guangye and the others were still in shock. One of them was like a heavenly thunder that contained destructive power. Han Ji, who was the weakest in the group, did not have time to resist at all. He could not resist at all and was directly smashed into pieces. On the other hand, Chen Hao's platinum sky-splitting cut seemed to have transcended the restraints of space. No one could stop it or resist it. Fast, ruthless, sharp, condensed. In an instant, it caused the world to lose its color. All sounds seemed to disappear and time seemed to stop. The sword light that was about 300 feet long was like a waterfall that turned into a light curtain that cut through everything in the world. Puff. 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 Ah! Liao Guangye let out a terrified scream. He did not have time to resist at all. He could only watch as his headless body fell down and blood spurted out. He simply could not believe that this was real. At the same time, one of the other two was cut in half at the waist, and the other was cut in half at the heart. The guy who was cut in half at the heart only let out a scream before he stopped moving. As for the guy who was cut in half at the waist, he continued to scream miserably. I can't die, I can't die. I don't want to die. Brother, you save me. Kid, tell me your name. Tell me, who are you in the Yuan Gate? Yu Chengfeng looked at Chen Hao, who was standing proudly without hiding his tracks. His face was so twisted that it no longer resembled a human's as he gritted his teeth and spoke. Jian Wufei's brows were tightly furrowed. She tightly gripped the sword in her hand. Her gaze was extremely serious as she stared coldly at Chen Hao. She was clearly much calmer than Yu Chengfeng. Her terrifying aura was still locked onto Chen Hao and Chen Shui's aura. She transmitted her voice. Yu Chengfeng, let's kill them together and split the loot equally. How about it? This kid was able to kill those pieces of trash with one strike. Although he caught them off guard, he is definitely not weaker than us. He might even have a trump card. That woman is not weak either. Okay. Yu Chengfeng's eyes flashed with a strong sense of viciousness as he spoke. At this point, his pride as the #1 inner sect disciple of the Southern Sea Islands had been crushed by Jian Wufei. It was not that Jian Wufei was stronger than him, but that the geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands were not something that the Western and Eastern continents could compare to. However, Jian Wufei was not inferior to him at all. And this Chen Hao, who he thought was dead for sure, had just displayed an attack that even he had to be careful of. Therefore he had no choice but to join forces with Jian Wufei. In his opinion, Chen Hao was definitely a super genius of the Eastern continent's strongest sect, the Yuan Gate. To be able to survive, he naturally had to have a sacred healing medicine. Don't say it. Chen Shui hurriedly transmitted her voice to Chen Hao to stop him. She was very clear that Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei were both top geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands and the Western continent. In Sky City, there were definitely many peak late nascent soul realm, and even half-step incarnation realm senior brothers and sisters of the same sect. Moreover, it was very likely that they had communication talismans between them. Once the other party knew their names, they would most likely be hunted down endlessly. However, Chen Hao smiled slightly. After glancing at Chen Shui, he proudly said, "Yuan Gate? Sorry, I have nothing to do with the Yuan Gate. Seeing that you are about to die, I don't mind telling you my name. I am Chen Hao, merely a disciple of a third-rank sect in the Eastern continent." Ah! Chen Shui frowned slightly and didn't say anything else. Since Chen Hao did this, he naturally believed in his own strength. Moreover, doing this would undoubtedly be beneficial to his elusive fortune. Moreover, he would be able to fight to his heart's content without leaving any inner demons. This was indeed the case. Chen Hao had been cultivating crazily for a month. Whether it was his strength or his cultivation level, Chen Hao had improved tremendously. Just now he had killed 3 people with a single slash, which made him feel very good. Under the rising battle intent, the arrogance in his bones completely exploded. His laughter was like thunder from the 9 heavens, shaking the surroundings. His entire mood was much more carefree. The power of the platinum sky-splitting slash also gave him a clearer understanding of it. The slash just now was just a pure platinum sky-splitting slash, without any spatial mysteries. Moreover, he had only used 80% of his strength. Although it still consumed a lot of energy, it wouldn't be a problem to use it 10 more times. When the time comes, if he combined the flaws of the solitary sword technique and spatial mysteries, how powerful would it be? At this point, if he still wanted to hide, he wouldn't be Chen Hao. Chen Hao was looking forward to it. What made Chen Hao even happier was that he finally understood his Tao and the direction he should work towards in the future. Just based on this point alone, even if his strength didn't increase, this trial in Sky City was worth it. Chen Hao. You're Chen Hao, the one who ranked 6th in the test? When Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei heard Chen Hao's name, they both revealed a trace of shock. What, are you scared? Chen Hao's lips curled up slightly as he stared at the two of them. His expression and tone were filled with naked contempt and disdain. I, Yu Chengfeng, have indeed underestimated you. However, you're not worthy of making me, Yu Chengfeng, scared. Yu Chengfeng gritted his teeth. Chen Hao's expression and tone at this moment should be Yu Chengfeng's. But today, someone dared to treat him like this. And it was someone younger than him. How could he tolerate this? Cut the crap. Leave the woman to me. After I kill this woman, we'll work together to kill him. We can't let them escape. Jian Wufei said viciously. As she spoke, she suddenly attacked like a poisonous snake. Second update. Each chapter is 3,000 words. Dark Mountain won't shrink from paying his debt. Also, Dark Mountain said that he would pay it all in a month, not the end of this month. To be precise, he will pay it all around the 17th of next month. Dark Mountain will continue to work hard. There will be a third update tonight. Thank you everyone. Please support Dark Mountain. Chapter 285. Jian Wufei slashed out with her sword, and the brilliant sword light locked onto Chen Shui as it tore through the void. At the same time, Yu Chengfeng hesitated for a moment before attacking violently. His body seemed to transform into a wind dragon as he charged towards Chen Hao and Jian Wufei. I'll deal with this woman. Sensing the aura of the two, Chen Hao's battle-intent soared as he suddenly sent a voice transmission to Chen Shui. As he spoke, he raised his sword to meet Jian Wufei. The reason why Chen Hao did this was not because Jian Wufei was stronger than Yu Chengfeng, but because he could sense that Jian Wufei's Mountain River Sword Dao was more dangerous and fierce. Especially the sword intent that it contained, it was extremely terrifying. If he was not careful, he could cause fatal damage to Chen Shui. As for the more violent Yu Chengfeng, he was more suitable for Chen Shui, who specialized in strange attacks. All right, Chen Shui replied as her body flashed. She unleashed the power of the space attribute to the extreme as she charged towards Yu Chengfeng with lightning speed. Your opponent is me. Swoosh. Chen Hao casually slashed out with his sword and blocked Jian Wufei's sword light as he charged towards Jian Wufei. That's great. Little girl, it would be a pity to kill you. It's not too late to surrender. Yu Chengfeng, now is not the time to lust after beauty. This kid is hard to deal with. Let's end this quickly. When Yu Chengfeng saw that Chen Hao and Chen Shui had swapped opponents, he was overjoyed. When he heard that Jian Wufei had chosen to kill Chen Shui first, he was a little conflicted. After all, a beauty like Chen Shui was rare. It would be a pity if she was killed just like that. Therefore, when he saw that Chen Hao was charging towards Jian Wufei and Chen Shui was charging towards him, he said excitedly. However, before he could finish, Jian Wufei's cold voice interrupted him. Jian Wufei knew that Chen Hao must be very strong, but she didn't think that Chen Hao would be able to easily sever her sword will that had locked onto Chen Shui. Don't worry, it's just a short while. Just don't let him escape. 10 moves. Within 10 moves, I will subdue this chick. Ha ha ha. Yu Chengfeng said arrogantly. At the same time, he opened his folding fan with a schwa sound and instantly started fighting with Chen Shui. Jian Wufei frowned. She had taken one step at a time. She had experienced countless life and death situations to reach her current position. Her calmness and survivability far surpassed that of ordinary people. She would never underestimate her opponent in any battle, especially when she truly fought Chen Hao. Even though they had only fought once, she could still sense how terrifying Chen Hao was. This feeling was not only because of his strength, but also because of Chen Hao's gaze that was as sharp as a sword, as well as his calm and collected aura that was as heavy as a mountain. This feeling was far more stressful than when she faced Yu Chengfeng. However, at this moment, she knew that it was impossible to control the lecherous Yu Chengfeng. With a cold snort, Jian Wufei's mind was completely immersed in the battle. A terrifying will of the sword emanated from her body and rushed towards Chen Hao. She slashed out with her sword and 2 rays of sword light appeared. What a strong will of the sword! Even Chen Hao, who was full of fighting spirit, couldn't help but praise her. The 2 rays of sword light that Jian Wufei shot out had completely different auras. One of them was heavy like a mountain and pressed down like Mount Tai, and it imperceptibly caused Chen Hao to arouse a feeling of powerlessness that was impossible to resist. It seemed as if he couldn't avoid it, and no matter how he resisted, he would be smashed into meat paste. On the other hand, the other was vast like an ocean and unfathomable, and it was like a continuous stream of furious waves that shook the heavens, wave after wave, and each wave was stronger than the last, and it was capable of drowning him at any moment. The only similarity was that the 2 rays of sword light were as fast as lightning. What was even more terrifying was that the 2 rays of sword light fused together and locked onto Chen Hao from all directions. Feeling the immense pressure, Chen Hao was shocked and excited at the same time. However, he didn't use brute force to break through. Instead, he immersed himself in the mysteries of his opponent's sword technique. His brain was spinning rapidly and his powerful perception was fully displayed at this moment. Schwa. He stabbed out with his sword and instantly attacked the weak point of the fusion of the 2 rays of sword light. It was also the weakest point of the will of the sword. He seemed to have easily broken through Jian Wufei's attack. Seeing Chen Hao easily break through her 2 layers of mountain, and see without using brute force, Jian Wufei's face revealed a trace of shock. Nobody knew better than her that although Chen Hao's attack seemed simple, if one didn't have great vision, great perception and shocking courage, he wouldn't have dared to use so little strength to attack. If he wasn't careful, he would have been heavily injured. Yu Chengfeng used the same move to break through it with absolute strength. Chen Hao was originally in the advanced stage of the Golden Core stage. To be able to rank 6th in the test, he definitely has great overall abilities. He said that he was a disciple of a 3rd-rank sect. To be able to achieve what he has today, He must have experienced countless life and death situations. Such an opponent is even more terrifying than Yu Chengfeng. I can't let my guard down. Jian Wufei was truly shocked at this moment. However, even though she was shocked, she wasn't afraid at all. She didn't achieve what she had today through trickery. Constantly challenging her limits was her forte, not to mention that she still had the ability to save her life. What was there to fear? Bitch, it seems like you want to die. Then I'll fulfill your wish. Boom. On the other side, Yu Chengfeng was both furious and shocked when he saw Chen Shui, who seemed to have blended into space, evading his 10 moves in a row. He immediately raised his strength to the limit. He couldn't understand how such a beautiful woman like Chen Shui could withstand his killing intent, that even a mid-nascent soul stage expert would fear. What surprised him even more was that his wind element that had just reached the early stage of the greater success stage, seemed to have met its nemesis under Chen Shui's spatial profundity. He was fast, but Chen Shui was faster. Moreover, she kept on fighting him. She made him unable to use his strength. If this continued, even if he used 100 or 1,000 moves, he wouldn't be able to do anything to Chen Shui. You're not worthy, Chen Shui said in a cold voice. After she finished speaking, she actually stopped fighting and directly attacked with her sword. The more Chen Shui fought, the more confident she became. Her opponent was only half a step away from the original level. Even though his physique and potential were extremely high, allowing Yu Chengfeng's qi to be more powerful than Chen Shui's, the difference wasn't that big. The only thing that affected Chen Shui was her opponent's chilling killing intent. Luckily, Chen Shui had already understood the space element to the peak of the initial stage of the greater success stage. The space element was a powerful element that surpassed the 5 elements. Without time, space was king. Whether it was speed or profundity, it far surpassed the wind element. This allowed Chen Shui to be undefeatable. Of course, Chen Shui didn't know that if Yu Chengfeng wanted to kill her from the start, she would have been heavily injured. Sadly, Yu Chengfeng's lust killed her. To know that no matter how strong the killing intent was, without the intention to kill, it would lose its soul. How could it be strong? Now, even if Yu Chengfeng wanted to kill her, it was too late. Because the effect of killing intent was to kill with one strike. Then it would weaken, then it would be exhausted. Chen Shui had already gotten used to his killing intent. No matter how strong it was, it wouldn't have the desired effect. Haha, is this the way of the sword? Bring it on. Let me see how strong a woman with a heart as vicious as a snake and scorpion is. Seeing Chen Shui's aura skyrocket, Chen Hao, who had been paying attention to Chen Shui all this time, praised her in his heart and relaxed completely. At this moment, he arrogantly laughed at Jian Wufei. You don't know what's good for you. Hiss. Jian Wufei suddenly thrust out her sword and spear. Originally, she had been holding back. After all, her cooperation with Yu Chengfeng was only temporary. If she and Chen Hao were to be seriously injured before Yu Chengfeng succeeded, then Yu Chengfeng wouldn't keep his promise and would kill her as well. But now, seeing that Yu Chengfeng couldn't suppress Chen Shui, she didn't dare to hold back anymore. Long-distance attacks could no longer satisfy her needs. Similarly, Chen Hao wasn't satisfied. In an instant, the two figures intertwined. Jian Wufei focused all of her energy and will of the sword Dao onto her sword. She slashed out again and again, each of her attacks aiming for the vitals of her enemies. She believed that Chen Hao would definitely not be able to catch her weakness in a close combat situation, where she could unleash 100 swords in an instant. The Mountain River sword technique was about using one's strength to suppress others. It was domineering. Slash after slash, every move was a strong attack. It was as if the entire world was in her hands. If they were on the same level, she would definitely be the one to win. Ding ding ding. Boom boom boom. In an instant, the sound of metal clashing and terrifying energy from the secret manual raged between the two of them. What shocked Chen Hao was that ever since he stepped into the world of cultivation, with the solitary sword technique in his hands, no one had ever been able to continuously attack him. After all, as long as he made a move, there would be a flaw. With a flaw, Chen Hao would be able to take the absolute initiative. But on Jian Wufei there was an exception. Jian Wufei's strong attacks were like sparks, surpassing Chen Hao's reaction speed. Moreover, the terrifying sword intent caused Chen Hao to feel immense pressure. His mind and thoughts were greatly suppressed. Left with no choice, Chen Hao could only infuse the profoundness of the space attribute into the solitary sword art. Every time he swung out his sword, it was as if there was a vortex within it, using it to cause Jian Wufei's sword to deviate from its trajectory. Only then did he manage to deal with Jian Wufei's strong attacks. What Chen Hao didn't know was that Jian Wufei was even more shocked than him. In a situation where they didn't use their trump cards and fought in close combat, no one had ever been able to compete with her. Even Yu Chengfeng could only dodge. But Chen Hao, under her sharp, dense and lightning-fast attacks, was able to hit her weak points 4 out of 5 times. What was even more shocking was that Chen Hao's every slash contained the space element's rotational force, swallowing her energy. It wasn't strange for the space element to be contained in a move that needed time to prepare. But to be able to contain it in a sword move at all times was too shocking. Third update, makeup. Continue to work hard tomorrow. Chapter 286. Boom. Jian Wufei released a move with all her might as she retreated. At the same time, her aura began to soar. At this point, Jian Wufei knew that if she wanted to take down Chen Hao, she would have to use her trump card. You are indeed very strong. You are the first person to force me, Jian Wufei, to this extent. You should be proud of yourself. Now I will show you my true strength. Hiss. Jian Wufei's eyes flashed. As she spoke, her aura began to change strangely. It was as if she had merged with the heavens and earth. A thick and majestic aura began to emanate from her body. It was as if she had transformed into a mountain. She slowly rose into the air. Boom, boom, boom. All of the heaven and earth's spiritual energy within a radius of 3,000 feet suddenly began to gather towards Jian Wufei's body at an astonishing speed. Even more astonishing was that the small mountain behind Jian Wufei suddenly began to collapse. Even the ground was ripped apart, and countless hard rocks of various sizes flew into the air as Jian Wufei slowly raised her sword, hovering behind her. Jian Wufei's clothes fluttered in the wind, and her expression was cold. An aura of absolute dominance spread out from her. Not to mention Chen Hao, who was bearing the brunt of it. Even Yu Chengfeng and Chen Shui, who were fighting not far away, were greatly affected. Yu Chengfeng and Chen Shui couldn't help but be distracted by the battle between Chen Hao and Jian Wufei. They both retreated and stopped fighting. At this point, even though Yu Chengfeng didn't want to admit it, he knew that if he wanted to take down Chen Shui, he wouldn't be able to do it in a short period of time. I didn't expect Jian Wufei to be so strong. Is this the 5th level of the Mountain River Sword technique? Dancing the mountains? It has to be. Drawing upon the power of the heavens and earth. Dancing the mountains and mountains for me to use and suppress everything. Impressive. However, Jian Wufei is clearly using a skill that is beyond her limits. After she kills that brat Chen Hao, she will definitely suffer a huge backlash. Hee hee. Yu Chengfeng stared at Jian Wufei, his heart filled with shock, but he was also secretly pleased. He was shocked at Jian Wufei's strength, but he was pleased because Jian Wufei's actions had undoubtedly given him the perfect opportunity. In his battle with Chen Shui, he had indeed done his best. However, he hadn't used his trump card at all. That was because he knew very well that his cooperation with Jian Wufei was nothing more than working with a wolf. The result he wanted to see the most was for Chen Hao and Jian Wufei to both be severely injured. Bring it on. Boom. Sensing the immense pressure from Jian Wufei, Chen Hao's deep black eyes flashed with a brilliant light. His blood boiled and the arrogance and fighting spirit hidden deep within his bones completely erupted at this moment. His essence, energy, and spirit seemed to have materialized, turning into a straight line of smoke that soared into the sky. At the same time, Chen Hao gripped the 5-elemental sword tightly in his right hand and slowly raised it up. Every time he raised it up a bit, the aura around him would rise up a bit. When the tip of the sword was pointed at Jian Wufei, who was hovering in the air, his entire being emitted a sharp aura that seemed capable of piercing through the heavens. So strong. Yu Chengfeng was shocked beyond words. But then his eyes became even more vicious. He thought to himself, this is even better. This Chen Hao's aura is actually on par with Jian Wufei's. Even if the two of them don't die in one move, they will lose their ability to fight. Later, when I use my trump card and heavily injure Chen Shui, I will be able to do whatever I want. Is this his limit? Unlike Yu Chengfeng, Chen Shui sensed the aura that Chen Hao was emitting. Her beautiful face revealed a trace of seriousness. However, it was only seriousness. In the small-size grotto heaven, her understanding of Chen Hao had reached a certain level. Take this. Jian Wufei's aura had reached its peak. She was like a high and mighty king as she slashed out with her sword. Boom 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 boom. Giant rocks covered the sky like locusts as they attacked Chen Hao. Every single one of them contained the terrifying will of the heavens and earth. Their speed was many times faster than the speed of sound. But what was even more shocking was that Jian Wufei had become one with her sword. After borrowing the power of the heavens and earth to attack with the giant rocks, her aura suddenly disappeared. Even her body disappeared from Chen Hao's eyes as she hid among the giant rocks. This was the true killing move. Even Chen Shui, who had absolute confidence in Chen Hao, had a change of expression at this moment. She had never thought that Jian Wufei's ultimate move would contain such a shocking stealth attack. This was her area of expertise. However, even with her superior soul perception, she couldn't lock onto Jian Wufei's aura. This was definitely dangerous. Similarly, Chen Hao was also shocked. At this moment, Chen Hao felt an unprecedented threat of death. I can't sense it. River Mountain Sword Dao, River Mountain Sword Dao. It contains the concept of mountains and earth, transforming into mountains and earth. So that's how it is. In that instant, Chen Hao's shocking comprehension ability understood the true power of Jian Wufei's River Mountain Sword Dao. Transforming into mountains and earth. She was mountains and earth was her. Between the layers of giant rocks, her aura had completely merged with them. Every boulder was her, and she was every boulder. To put it bluntly, the attack of the giant rocks was just a cover for her true killing move. She was too fast and Chen Hao didn't have much time to think or comprehend. The only thing he could do was face her head-on. And Chen Hao knew that he had to be even faster. At this moment, Chen Hao's mind was more focused than ever. With a loud shout, his sword swept out. Another sword swept out. Another sword swept out. Shwa shwa shwa. 3 consecutive swords as fast as shooting stars. Every sword was a platinum heaven-splitting slash. Boom 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 boom. The 3 swords seemed to come at the same time, and contained a terrifying spatial vortex. The moment they collided with the giant rocks, there was a loud explosion that shook the heavens and earth. The giant rocks were directly turned to dust. Jian Wufei's figure suddenly appeared. Die. No one could describe how shocked Jian Wufei was at this moment. She originally thought that her sword, which surpassed her cultivation level, would definitely be able to kill Chen Hao. She didn't even need to use her one with the sword to attack. But she didn't think that Chen Hao would be able to instantly shatter her dancing mountains and earth spirit chi. In her estimation, with Chen Hao's strength, this was absolutely impossible. But Chen Hao did it. Consecutive killer moves. What kind of concept was this? At the very least, Jian Wufei had never seen or even heard of someone who was able to use such a move in succession. But Chen Hao instantly sent out 3 platinum heaven-splitting slashes, leaving her with nowhere to hide. Her mind, energy, and strength, all of her will under extreme shock, made Jian Wufei more focused than ever. She, who was one with the sword, seemed to tear through the void and lock onto Chen Hao's forehead. She didn't believe that Chen Hao could use another killer move. Plus, even if Chen Hao could use another killer move, she was confident that she could use her strongest sword to kill Chen Hao. Closer, closer. Jian Wufei seemed to see the hope of victory. Ah! Chen Shui screamed. But at this moment, she couldn't help at all. Not to mention that she couldn't use her killer move in time. Even if she did, it would be useless. Yu Qingfeng was excited, but at the same time, he was terrified. What did Chen Hao's consecutive killer moves mean? Just what sort of concept was that when Jian Wufei concealed herself, she was able to erupt with peerless might? He, Yu Qingfeng, was the strongest of the 3 forces the South Sea Islands intersect. But at this moment, he knew that whether it was Chen Hao or Jian Wufei, he couldn't win against them. Luckily, the 2 of them were on the verge of death. He was certain that Chen Hao would die and Jian Wufei wouldn't be any better. At that time, it would be time for him to kill Jian Wufei. At this moment of life and death, the pale-faced Chen Hao's expression was cold to the extreme. 3 consecutive platinum sky-splitting slashes was his limit. In reality, if it wasn't for his dual cultivation of martial arts and mental energy, allowing his mental energy to surpass others of the same level, and his soul power to surpass others, he wouldn't have been able to use his killer moves in succession. But even so, the price he had to pay was great. With his current strength, he could definitely use 10 platinum sky-splitting slashes. But just 3 of them cost him 60% of his true energy. But he couldn't even hurt Jian Wufei. And at this moment, he was facing Jian Wufei's true killer move. At this moment, Chen Hao could clearly tell that even if he combined the solitary sword technique and the space element into the platinum sky-splitting slash and used all his strength, he still wouldn't be able to defend against her strongest attack. What would the result be? Death. Melt for me. The thick aura of death made Chen Hao go crazy. There was no reason to hide anymore. He couldn't hide anymore. Otherwise, he would be the one to die. As Chen Hao shouted, Chen Hao slashed out again. It was still the platinum sky-splitting slash. It still contained the space element. But the difference was boom 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 boom. Ayo, 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 ji, ji. Along with Chen Hao's strike, the roar of a beast that resounded through the heavens, and the earth suddenly gushed out from the 5-element sword. Flying dragon leaves the abyss. Qilin breaks the earth. Fierce tiger descends the mountain. Vermilion bird burns the heavens. Turtle snake overturns the sea. The inherited power of the 5 divine beasts was forcefully infused into the platinum sky-splitting slash by Chen Hao. Ever since he obtained the 5 divine beasts, he basically hid them. First, he didn't want to borrow their power. Second, he didn't have the time to spend on the 5 divine beasts during his intense cultivation journey. However, this mindset had changed when he was cultivating in the grotto heaven. In the past, he was biting off more than he could chew. He was fantasizing too much about the secrets of the Tao. He didn't realize that only the things in his hands belonged to him. Only by constantly comprehending and perfecting one's own Tao would one be able to step onto the strongest path. Chen Hao didn't know the consequences of forcefully fusing them. But he knew that if he didn't do so, he would die. Between the unknown and death, he chose the unknown. At this moment, Chen Hao felt as if all the essence, energy, and spirit in his body had been sucked out. His internal organs, meridians, and golden core had all suffered a severe backlash in an instant. However, Chen Hao gritted his teeth and completed this sword strike. The strongest slash of his life. Part 1. Chapter 287. Ah! The terrified Chen Shui felt as if her heart was in her throat. She circulated her energy to the maximum, as she prepared to fight with her life on the line. She had always been calm and was rarely impulsive, but facing the possibility of Chen Hao dying under Jian Wufei's sword, she could no longer remain calm. But at this moment, Chen Shui, who thought that Chen Hao had reached his limit, didn't expect Chen Hao to once again display strength that exceeded her expectations. How is this possible? Yu Qingfeng was already a little dumbfounded. His face was twisted to the extreme as he stared at Chen Hao in a daze. His heart trembled as he couldn't take the repeated blows from Jian Wufei and Chen Hao. He also deeply understood that if he fought with Jian Wufei and Chen Hao in a life-and-death battle, he would be the one to lose. Jian Wufei was even more terrified than Chen Shui and Yu Qingfeng. When Chen Hao broke through his limit and unleashed his strongest attack, Swordswoman's cold eyes suddenly shrank. She had never felt fear before, but at this moment, she felt the threat of death from the depths of her heart. She couldn't tell what the outcome would be, but she knew that she couldn't win. And there was no way out. Clang. Rumble. The 2 swords clashed, causing the earth to crack. At this moment, even the heavens and earth darkened. Jian Wufei's body was like a kite with a broken string. She spat out a stream of blood as she flew backwards. On the other hand, Chen Hao, who was already standing on the ground, was directly struck by the terrifying recoil, creating a deep ravine on the ground. His entire body also spat out a mouthful of blood as he fell limply to the ground. Chen Hao. Hiss. Chen Shui cried out loudly in terror. Then she suddenly vanished on the spot, and charged towards Chen Hao like a bolt of lightning. Ha ha ha, geniuses, top geniuses, you are all top geniuses. But today you will all die in my hands, ha ha ha. Hiss. When Yu Chengfeng saw the results of the battle, he immediately woke up from his shock. He laughed wildly in excitement. As he spoke, he turned into a streak of light and shot towards Jian Wufei, who was still floating in the void. He would first kill the heavily injured Jian Wufei, then kill Chen Hao, who was protected by Chen Shui. His wishful thinking was absolutely good. But just as Yu Chengfeng was about to catch up to Jian Wufei, a terrifying aura suddenly surged out of Jian Wufei's forehead. It was an aura that Jian Wufei didn't even have at her peak state. This aura was extremely strong. Not to mention a half-step nascent soul stage cultivator. Even in primordial spirit stage cultivator wouldn't have this aura. At this moment, the aura Yu Chengfeng felt was not at all inferior to the aura of their sect master. In his fear, Yu Chengfeng almost fell from the sky. How would he dare to attack? It was also at this moment that Yu Chengfeng saw an illusory figure containing a terrifying will appear beside Jian Wufei. That illusory figure lightly waved his hand at Jian Wufei. In the next instant, the illusory figure transformed into a mysterious energy that enveloped Jian Wufei. After that, the illusory figure vanished into the void. Celestial Prime's will. Could it be the Celestial Prime's will? How is this possible? How did she get it? This time, Yu Chengfeng was really scared out of his wits. He was so scared that he almost peed his pants. No matter what, he did not expect Jian Wufei to have obtained the Celestial Prime's will. As a top genius of a 9th-rank sect in the South Sea, his knowledge was far beyond that of Chen Hao and Chen Shui. How many people in the entire boundless continent could obtain the Celestial Prime's will? In Yu Chengfeng's knowledge, only in the most powerful, chaotic, and competitive middle continent, there were less than 2 top geniuses who could obtain the Celestial Prime's will. This was the protection that the supreme existence of the boundless continent, the limitless celestial palace, gave to the geniuses with great potential. Those who were able to obtain the protection were all exceptional geniuses. Although Yu Chengfeng had the confidence to break through, the current him was not even worth a fart in front of these people. But Jian Wufei, who was only half a step away from the nascent soul stage, obtained it. I actually lost. Jian Wufei, who was surrounded by a mystical aura and extremely weak, spoke with an unwilling expression on her face within a mystical space. This space was a mini heavenly abode that the celestial primes will opened up. With the protection of this heavenly abode, Jian Wufei could naturally escape death. However, from now on, she would no longer have her strongest trump card. That was because everyone only had one chance. When she saw Chen Hao's true strength, she was fearless because of this trump card. But at that time, she never thought that she would need it. If she knew this would happen, she would rather give up on Chen Hao. It was just a training ground for the Golden Core and Nascent Soul Stage cultivators. How good could the items in the heavenly abode be? She wouldn't trade for anything precious, let alone primal crystal stones, heaven-level techniques, or upper-level spiritual weapons. This was something that could even save her life if she met an Essence Soul Stage cultivator. But now, it was wasted on Chen Hao, a cultivator at the peak of the Golden Core stage. Taking a deep breath, Jian Wufei's eyes shone with unwillingness and coldness. She didn't waste any more time and entered the state of recovery. Since I can't kill her now, I'll just kill Chen Hao. Yu Chengfeng, who was on the verge of pissing himself, was stunned for a few minutes under that terrifying aura. He only came back to his senses when all the immortal venerate's wills dissipated. He thought to himself viciously, but when he turned around, Chen Hao and Chen Shui were nowhere to be seen. They ran away? Yu Chengfeng was both shocked and furious. He spread out his senses but couldn't sense any trace of Chen Hao and Chen Shui's auras. After a month of hard work, he didn't even get anything. He even watched as the other 4 super geniuses of the South Sea Islands were killed. Adding on the fact that Chen Hao and Jian Wufei had hurt him, it was hard for his heart not to be twisted. Die, die, die. You all have to die. Chen Hao's talent, comprehension, and combat power are no less than Jian Wufei's. If he is allowed to grow, he will definitely be able to obtain the Celestial Prime's will. He must die. That girl is no worse than me. It's obviously impossible to subdue her. She must die too. Jian Wufei must die too. The celestial primes can only save her life once. She's gone. I've already offended them. If I don't kill them, they'll kill me one day. Pfft. Yu Qingfeng had no choice but to crush a sect-disciple communication talisman. He sent out all the information about Qin Hao, Qin Shui, and Jian Wufei. He believed that the peak late-stage nascent soul realm and half-step incarnation realm experts in the sect who had entered Sky City would not ignore him after receiving his information. Because even though he was half-step nascent soul, his prestige in the sect was unparalleled. Because his potential was undoubtedly the strongest. The only difference now was the difference in cultivation level. After doing all this, Yu Qingfeng turned into a ray of light and flew towards the depths of Sky City. It was obviously impossible to chase after Chen Hao and Qin Shui. Once Chen Hao recovered a bit, it wouldn't be a problem of chasing after him, but how to escape. He was already scared out of his wits by Chen Hao and Jian Wufei. As for Jian Wufei, he knew that she couldn't be here with the Celestial Prime's will. Otherwise, she wouldn't be a life-saving talisman. In the void, every time they flashed, they would travel a few hundred feet. Chen Shui carried the heavily injured Chen Hao and pushed her speed to the limit. She had reached the peak of the early stage of the greater mastery of the space element, so her speed was extremely fast. Even a peak late-stage nascent soul, or half-step incarnation realm expert, might not be able to catch up to her. And this was the speed of carrying a person. Chen Hao's injuries were very serious. The injuries on his body weren't any less than when he entered the cultivation paradise. What was more serious was that Chen Hao had used up all his energy. Even his essence, energy, and soul seemed to have been sucked dry. He was extremely weak. It could be said that the battle between Chen Hao and Jian Wufei was a lose-lose situation. Both of them had almost lost their lives. With such heavy injuries, Chen Hao naturally couldn't be carried by Qin Shui. She could only hold him firmly in her arms. Moreover, while flying at such a high speed, she had to use her energy to protect Chen Hao. At the same time, she poured her true yuan into Chen Hao's almost dried-up dantian to help him refine the healing pills. Can't you close your eyes? In the beginning, Qin Shui, who was busy running away, put all her focus on how to get rid of Yu Qingfeng. After flying continuously for an hour, when she was sure that Yu Qingfeng couldn't catch up to her, Qin Shui suddenly realized that Chen Hao, who was in her arms, was staring at her. If he was staring, then so be it. Occasionally looking was nothing. But after looking a few times, Qin Shui discovered that Chen Hao's eyes were open the entire time. Qin Shui finally couldn't help but say, "Actually, you could have killed Yu Qingfeng. Why did you run?" Chen Hao didn't answer Qin Shui. Instead, he weakly said, feeling Qin Shui's warm and soft embrace. Although Chen Hao was heavily injured, his heart was very satisfied. It wasn't that Chen Hao had any shameless thoughts. It was because this child lacked too much love and care in his previous life. Qin Shui desperately running away with him made him feel like he was being protected. What made him speechless was that this fellow actually enjoyed this rare warmth. Coupled with the faint fragrance of Qin Shui's virgin body, it was simply too easy to intoxicate him. "I'm not absolutely sure. It would be bad if you were to be affected." Qin Shui avoided Chen Hao's gaze as she searched for a temporary shelter. "I'm not that weak. The most serious thing is that I've exhausted my energy. Even if this injury was 10 times more serious, it wouldn't be a problem. If that kid doesn't die, Sky City will be much more dangerous for us. Just be careful and avoid it. It's nothing." Qin Shui said, "But that Jian Wufei is really too terrifying." That appeared at the end. "There's always a mountain higher than the other." Cough cough. Chen Hao opened his mouth and said. However, when he spoke, his eyes, which were lying on his back, were looking at the charming and gentle figure. This was definitely unintentional, but since he had already said it, he couldn't take it back. Fortunately, Qin Shui didn't have any reaction. Chen Hao hurriedly said, "That was the will of a celestial sovereign. Let alone me. Even a primordial soul realm expert wouldn't be able to kill her." "Will of a celestial sovereign? What is that?" Qin Shui asked in surprise. Chapter 288. The Immortal Sovereign's Will is the Protection of the Limitless Immortal Palace. Only the true geniuses of the Limitless Immortal Palace have it. Jian Wufei comprehended the Mountain River Sword Dao at the Golden Core stage, and condensed the Sword Dao will. She is indeed extraordinary. It is said that the number of disciples under the nascent soul stage in the Limitless Continent can be counted on one hand. Only the monstrous geniuses of the Middle Continent have it. Of course, this is only on the surface. The ones that spread out are those who have used the Immortal Sovereign's will. No one would say such things. Just like Jian Wufei, if it wasn't exposed, who would know that she had it? Maybe there are people in the Eastern Continent who have it too, Chen Hao said slowly. When he mentioned the Eastern Continent, Xiao Yuyu's figure appeared in Chen Hao's mind. How do you know so much? Chen Shui looked at Chen Hao in surprise. It's a secret. Chen Hao's blood-stained lips curled up slightly. He used the word secret to dodge Chen Shui's question. He couldn't help it. Itoda knew all this and he couldn't say it out loud. Chen Shui pouted unhappily and didn't ask further. More than 10 minutes later, Chen Shui found a small but absolutely hidden cave on a mountain peak. With his powerful soul perception, he confirmed that there was no danger before leading Chen Hao in. It had to be said that Chen Hao's recovery ability was obviously several times stronger than the last time he was seriously injured. In just 2 hours of flight, although he had Chen Shui's help, the two of them were still chatting. But even so, the huge injuries on Chen Hao's body had recovered by about 30%. Under the effect of the pure medicine, the true yuan in his dantian had also recovered by 10%. We are flying towards the outer area. There shouldn't be any danger here. Hurry up and heal your injuries. I will guard you. Chen Shui put Chen Hao down and said. Okay. Chen Hao nodded. He didn't stand on ceremony and entered a state of cultivation. Chen Shui sat cross-legged at the entrance of the cave. Although Chen Shui didn't enter the life and death battle, the pressure that Yu Chengfeng gave her and the battle between Chen Hao and Jian Wufei gave her a lot of benefits. Once she completely digested it, Chen Shui was sure that her battle strength would increase by a lot. A day later, Chen Shui was meditating when she suddenly felt a familiar fluctuation in the surrounding space. It was familiar because she had experienced it before. But what surprised Chen Shui was that this fluctuation was far more powerful than what she had experienced before. At this instant, Chen Shui clearly felt that the energy of heaven and earth that she could originally easily absorb had actually been forcefully pulled away from her body at this moment, as if it had been sucked into a vacuum, causing her to be unable to absorb the slightest bit of it. Sovereigns. Chen Shui opened her eyes in surprise and stared at Chen Hao, who was sitting cross-legged not far away. Clearly, Chen Hao's cultivation had advanced once again. Half-stage. What is the concept of half-stage? Specifically, any half-stage cultivator has the necessary conditions to enter the original realm. As long as they are willing, they can trigger the heaven's punishment. It's just that no one dares to trigger the heaven's punishment. From the Golden Elixir realm onwards, any breakthrough in the next realm requires one to undergo the heaven's punishment. The strength of the heaven's punishment varies from person to person. The stronger the person, the more terrifying the heaven's punishment. No cultivator dares to trigger the heaven's punishment recklessly. Especially for normal cultivators, the heaven's punishment is a nightmare to them. Some people will only risk their lives when their lifespan is nearing its end. Even super geniuses like Chu Qingtian, Guxing, and Wu Ruochen don't dare to be careless. Of course, it's not that they are afraid that they can't overcome it. It's that they want to improve themselves more. The stronger the heaven's punishment is, the greater the danger, but the greater the rewards. This is because the heaven's punishment is a refinement of the body, soul, and mind. If one can successfully overcome it, there will be great benefits. Therefore, these super geniuses will only trigger the heaven's punishment when they can no longer improve themselves, and when their minds are perfect and they have no inner demons. Though this slows down their cultivation speed, once they enter a higher realm, they will have more potential and more flexibility. Half-stage original realm. After a full 10 minutes, Chen Hao let out a long breath and slowly opened his eyes. His handsome face shone with a trace of excitement. Chen Hao could clearly feel that the golden elixir in his dantian was beating slightly. Like a baby's heart, it produced a trace of life. This was the sign of forming the original realm. As long as he triggers the heaven's punishment, he will successfully overcome it. He will break through to the original realm. The density of my Zhenyuan has increased by 40%. I didn't think that a half-step original realm cultivator would be so powerful. Chen Hao saw Chen Shui staring at him and smiled. He was certain that if he were to face Jian Wufei's last attack, Chen Hao would be able to easily take it. This is the absolute power brought by the increase in cultivation level. 40%? Are you sure? Chen Shui was shocked. Is it a lot? It seems a bit much, hehe. Chen Hao smiled proudly. Ito Ta was already roaring in Chen Hao's mind. What do you mean a bit much? When I reached the half-step nascent soul stage, it only increased by 25%. That was already very shocking. Half-step nascent soul realm was only at the golden core realm. But you increased it by 40%. If you enter the original realm, I really don't know how much you can improve. Chen Shui said speechlessly. You will know when the time comes. Speaking of which, I'm curious. Why are you in such a hurry to increase your cultivation level? With your talent, if you weren't in a hurry to increase your cultivation level, your early original realm strength wouldn't be so low. Secret. What caused Chen Hao to be speechless was that Chen Shui straightforwardly gave him a taste of his own medicine and shut Chen Hao's mouth. Should we continue or? Chen Shui calmed herself down and changed the topic. Let's wait a few more days. This battle allowed me to comprehend a lot of things, and I have just increased my cultivation level, so I need to digest it, Chen Hao said. If it was before entering the grotto heaven, he would definitely choose to go deeper. But now Chen Hao's mentality has changed. Even in this once-in-a-century sky city, he can face it calmly. It has to be said that since stepping into the cultivation world, Chen Hao has been rushing forward, almost without any pause. It seems that the improvement is amazing, but now Chen Hao understands that if this situation continues, it will not be a good thing. Tension and relaxation, the way of civil and martial arts. Such a simple truth is often the easiest to ignore. The so-called relaxation is not to abandon everything, but to stop and digest. Only in this way can you improve yourself from a deeper level, understand yourself, and surpass yourself. Okay. I also need a few days to digest it. I will go out for a while and be back in a while, Chen Shui said. You want to take a bath and change your clothes, right? Chen Hao naturally knew what Chen Shui was going to do. He smiled slightly and asked without hesitation. Why do you ask if you know? What I mean is, you don't have to go out. I will give you a surprise later. Chen Hao smiled slightly and said mysteriously. He took out the 5 elements sword and swept his gaze across the cave. Then he started to attack continuously. Chi 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 chi. With Chen Hao's sword light, the hard rocks flew out of the cave like tofu. After a while, the cave that was originally only 10 feet in radius became 100 feet in radius. Moreover, at the bottom, there were 2 independent small caves. If they were standing alone, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, Chen Hao had obviously turned these 2 small caves into baths that were 10 feet wide and 3 feet deep. What are you doing? Chen Shui was curious about what surprise Chen Hao would give her, but after seeing Chen Hao make this space, she asked puzzledly. Look carefully. Voila, following Chen Hao's voice, something that shocked Chen Shui happened. The clear, sparkling water that contained dense and pure spiritual qi of heaven and earth actually gushed out from Chen Hao's body. In an instant, one of the baths was filled to the brim. Spiritual spring. You. How can you take it out? In almost an instant, Chen Shui recognized what Chen Hao released. Secret. I also didn't expect to take it out, but the moment we came out, I took it out. Alright, this bathing pool is yours. It's enough for you to absorb for a few days. If it's not enough, just look for me. Chen Shui looked at Chen Hao in a daze as he walked out of the small cave. How is this possible? How did he do it? This time, Chen Shui was really stunned by the word secret from Chen Hao. One had to know that when she was cultivating in the grotto heaven, she had tried it. Once the spiritual spring was absorbed into the storage space, the spiritual qi in it would disappear completely. and there would be no difference between it and ordinary water. Moreover, she clearly remembered that Chen Hao had also tried it before, and it also didn't work. But how did he get it out now? Other than the fact that it didn't contain the profound space attribute, it was exactly the same as the spiritual spring in the grotto heaven. How many secrets does he have? Chen Shui originally thought that she had enough secrets, but compared to Chen Hao, it seemed to be far from enough. Chen Shui was both depressed and happy. After blocking the hole, she took off her blue dress that was stained with Chen Hao's blood and jumped into the spirit spring. Although her true essence had long since cleaned up the stains on her body, her many years of habit still made Chen Shui gently scrub every inch of her smooth and sparkling skin. After taking off her veil, her skin was as white as snow, and she was devastatingly beautiful. Her beautiful eyes flickered, and no one knew what she was thinking. In short, after more than 10 minutes, she threw away the distracting thoughts in her mind and entered into a state of cultivation. After Chen Hao pretended to be calm and entered another small cave, his face was filled with intense joy. Even he didn't expect that the mysterious existence in his mind would bring him such a pleasant surprise. Although he couldn't take away all the spiritual spring in the grotto heaven, if he released all of it, it would be enough to form a small lake with a diameter of 200 feet and a depth of 100 feet. How high was the value of this? Third update, to fill in the gaps. There is no update tonight. Everyone don't wait. I finished early today, the result of staying up late last night, so that I can play with my daughter tonight. I haven't played with her since I came back from Nanjing. Tomorrow, I will continue to work hard in Dark Mountain. Chapter 289. Chen Hao's mind was immersed in the Heaven and Earth Ring. The Heaven and Earth Ring was originally a low-grade spiritual weapon, but when combined with the 5 spiritual swords, it surpassed high-grade spiritual weapons and was close to supreme-grade spiritual weapons. Unlike ordinary spiritual weapons, it also had a storage space, and as Chen Hao's realm increased, the size of the storage space gradually increased. Until now, Chen Hao had not completely merged with the Heaven and Earth Ring, but he was not far away. What a pity, what a pity. If the space of the Heaven and Earth Ring was big enough, it might be able to store all the spiritual spring in the grotto heaven. Chen Hao had never felt that the space of the Heaven and Earth Ring was small, but now it was almost filled with spring water. He was sure that when he walked out of the grotto heaven, the mysterious existence had helped him fill it up. However, at this moment, he had stepped into the half-step nascent soul stage, so there was a little more space. 1 square foot contains the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, which is equivalent to a low-grade primordial crystal stone. My spiritual spring is 3 million cubic feet, which is equivalent to 3 million low-grade primordial crystal stones, which is 30,000 high-grade primordial crystal stones, and 3,000 supreme-grade primordial crystal stones. Cultivating the grotto heaven only gives me 100 supreme-grade primordial crystal stones. Chen Hao's mind was immersed in the Heaven and Earth Ring, and he calculated in his heart. Master, the value of the spiritual spring can't be calculated like that. Although the spiritual spring has lost the space attribute, it still contains an ancient aura, and the energy in it is also extremely pure. If you sell it to an alchemist or a weapon refiner, the price will be several times higher. Moreover, Master, you must minor in alchemy and weapon refinement, and it will be better for you to use it. Ito Tai said. Of course, I will keep good things for my own use. Chen Hao replied. Almost all cultivators would be involved in alchemy and weapon refinement. It was just a major and a minor. Weapon refinement was especially important. After reaching the primordial soul stage, almost everyone had to learn it. After all, it was very difficult to obtain a powerful spiritual weapon, and to let one's weapon exert the greatest power, one could only continuously modify it. Moreover, only one knew what one needed the most. A weapon refiner could refine a powerful spiritual weapon, but it was not necessarily the most suitable for one's own spiritual weapon. For true experts, their natal magic treasures were obtained through continuous refinement and refinement. His mind came out of the mysterious yellow ring. Chen Hao was actually reluctant to pour the spirit spring into the bath. Anyway, he had just been promoted to the half-step nascent soul stage, and was already in the peak state. Therefore, he directly took off his blood-stained and torn clothes, and with a surge of his true essence, he removed the stains on his body. After changing into an ordinary robe, he went to the big hole and activated his energy to lay down layers of enchantments within a radius of 1,000 feet. After making sure that he would not disturb Chen Hao took out the 5-element sword, integrated his mind into it, and stabbed with the sword. After the battle with Jian Wufei, Chen Hao no longer had any trump cards to speak of. Now, what he needed to do was to truly integrate the inheritance of the 5 divine beasts into the Platinum Sky-Piercing Slash, and completely turn the Platinum Sky-Piercing Slash into a true combo ultimate move. As long as he could achieve these 2 points, his combat strength would increase again. At the same time, he wanted to see if he could make a breakthrough in his sword Dao. Chen Hao had already awakened his sword intent, and his sword intent had already reached the first level of the sword Dao. Moreover, in the battle with Jian Wufei, facing the terrifying sword intent, Chen Hao could clearly feel that his sword intent was showing signs of a breakthrough. Once it reached the second level of the sword Dao, even if he did not comprehend the sword intent, his combat strength would increase by a lot. As for the sword intent, Chen Hao did not ask for it. This was because he did not cultivate the corresponding sword techniques, and his sword intent was not high enough, so it would be difficult for him to form the sword intent. Phew! Jian Wufei let out a long sigh and slowly opened her eyes in the small hole that seemed to be floating in the void. As expected of a celestial sovereign's intent, just a strand of divine will can form such a powerful small hole. If it was a real person, how strong would it be? In just 2 days, without any healing elixirs, I have not only recovered to my peak state, but my sword intent has also reached the middle stage of the greater success stage. If I use the 5th level of the Mountain River sword technique now, I will definitely not suffer any backlash. Jian Wufei's eyes shone brightly, and her face was filled with confidence as she thought to herself, Chen Hao, don't let me find you. Otherwise, I will cut you into 1,000 pieces, and destroy your body and soul. And that woman, they will all die. As for you, Chengfeng, I can only endure for now. Jian Wufei said coldly, and she already had a plan in mind. Sensing that the small hole was about to shatter, Jian Wufei slowly stood up, and the unwillingness in her heart grew. Her hatred for Chen Hao grew even stronger. After stepping out of the small hole, Jian Wufei appeared in Sky City again. The surrounding heaven and earth spiritual qi was extremely dense, and it was obvious that it was of a higher level than where she and Chen Hao were originally. Without any hesitation, Jian Wufei sent the message and crushed the sex communication talisman. She had done the same thing as Yu Chengfeng. However, she didn't try to get the sex disciples to kill Yu Chengfeng. This was because Jian Wufei knew that Yu Chengfeng was a super genius from the Coiling Dragon Valley, a rank 9 sect in the South Sea Islands. The Coiling Dragon Valley was a sect that was much stronger than the Sky River sect, and they had a unique position in the South Sea Islands. They definitely had more peak late nascent soul and half-step incarnation realm experts than the Sky River sect that Jian Wufei was in. Even if she said it, the sect's disciples wouldn't dare to provoke him. There was no need to waste energy. Unless she met Yu Chengfeng, who was alone, she could only let him go for now. 10 days later. Chengfeng, there is still no news. We can't delay any longer. There are less than 2 months left in Sky City, and in 20 days, the core of the ancient city will open. We have to go. Maybe we can meet them there. Deep in Sky City, on a mountain peak, a half-step incarnation realm youth with a powerful aura said calmly. This youth's face was like jade, and he wore a white robe that was spotless. Beside him stood 2 extremely beautiful women, one on his left and one on his right, and it was obvious that they had a close relationship. If the people of the South Sea Islands saw him, they would know who he was. This youth was the strongest sect in the South Sea Islands, the leader of the core disciples of the Coiling Dragon Valley, Yi Shanshui. His combat strength was unfathomable, and he had the bloodline of the ancient divine dragon. He was also the leader of the Coiling Dragon Valley disciples, and he was ranked first in the test. Even Yu Chengfeng didn't dare to say that he had absolute confidence in surpassing this person. Fortunately, Yi Shanshui was determined to travel the world with his beauty. Moreover, he was more than 10 years older than Yu Chengfeng. so there was no competitive relationship between them. Both of them were extremely lustful, and they were both top geniuses, so they had a good relationship. Alright, that's all we can do for now, Yu Qingfeng said with a gloomy face. Under Yi Shanshui's orders, the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Valley who had entered the Sky City and the sects of Hanji and the other geniuses had been searching for 10 days, but they had yet to find any news about Chen Hao, Chen Shui, or Jian Wufei. Are you going to follow us or do you want to go on your own? Yi Shanshui asked. I'll follow you, Yu Qingfeng said hesitantly. Haha, this isn't like you. Yu Qingfeng's expression was a bit ugly. Yu Qingfeng's expression was a bit ugly as he said, "You didn't see how strong Chen Hao and Jian Wufei were. One can use his ultimate moves in succession, and has the inheritances of the 5 mythological beasts. The other's sword intent has reached large success, and she has mastered the 5th level of the Mountain River Sword Dao. I'm not their match right now, unless I can awaken my bloodline to the 2nd level, but damn it. Alright. Your bloodline is much stronger than mine, so it's naturally hard for you to awaken it. Follow me, and if we meet them, I'll kill them for you. If you can't increase your strength, then you'll attract divine punishment when you leave Sky City." Yes. Yu Qingfeng nodded his head and replied. Hiss hiss hiss. Boom boom boom. 3 incomparably sharp sword lights shot out almost at the same time. In an instant, a mountain peak with a diameter of 300 feet was directly cut into 3 sections and collapsed with a loud bang. The incomparably sharp sword intent lasted for a few minutes before it slowly dissipated. 3 consecutive sword attacks. I can already easily do it. My sword intent has also broken through to the 2nd level of the Sword Dao, but the 5 divine beasts are still unable to merge naturally. It looks like it won't be done in a short period of time. Only by merging with the 5 divine beasts will it be possible. But even so, my battle strength has increased by quite a bit. Even if I meet a late nascent soul stage super genius, I have a 70% chance of winning. Peak late nascent soul stage and half incarnation stage. With the space element and the mental cultivation method to merge with everything in the world, I should have no problem staying alive. Chen Hao slowly put away his sword as he judged. Is it done? At this moment, Chen Shui, who was standing near Chen Hao, asked. Dressed in a blue dress, she stood tall and slender. At this moment, her aura had clearly improved. It's about time. If you meet Yu Qingfeng again, what are your chances of winning? Chen Hao asked as he sensed Chen Shui's aura. 100%. The premise is that he hasn't become stronger, Chen Shui said confidently. After nearly 10 days of digestion and absorption, Chen Shui's improvement was no less than Chen Hao's. Not only did she break through from the peak of the early nascent soul stage to the middle nascent soul stage, but her chaos sword technique had also improved, and she had mastered the 6th level of the Tempest Thunder Tribulation. Moreover, she had also comprehended some of the solitary sword technique that Chen Hao had taught her. It had to be said that although the cultivation environment in Sky City had a lot to do with the two's monstrous speed of improvement, it was still much faster for other super geniuses. Not bad. Let's go then. Let's go straight to the depths. The ancient city area is about to open. With our strength, as long as we hide, we will have no problem staying alive, Chen Shui said. Okay. Hiss. 5 days later, the two of them were meditating to recover and flying. Without stopping to rest, they advanced into the depths of Sky City. Along the way, they encountered many cultivators and flying beasts, but the two of them quietly avoided them. Firstly, it was not challenging. Secondly, there was not much time left before the core of the ancient city area opened, and they did not have time to waste. Thirdly, there were too many people who wanted to trouble them. Once they were exposed, they might attract countless experts. It could not be helped. Just the disciples of the Eastern continent alone would want to trample on Chen Hao, or even kill him. Moreover, Chen Hao had killed several top geniuses from the Southern Sea Islands and the Western continent. First update. Chapter 290. As Chen Hao and Chen Shui continued to go deeper, they encountered more and more cultivators. They saw countless small-scale battles, and most of them were people from different continents. However, these had nothing to do with the two of them. Both of them blended into everything in the world and drifted past like two gusts of wind. When the two of them were about to find a place to recover, Chen Shui suddenly seemed to have noticed something. What did you notice? Chen Hao asked. In these few days, Chen Hao was completely sure that Chen Shui, who had stepped into the intermediate nascent soul stage, was more than 30% stronger than him in terms of perception ability. Chen Hao's current perception ability limit of 500 miles was already very heaven-defying. Even compared to a super genius at the half-step incarnation stage, it was still slightly stronger. However, Chen Shui could easily sense the distance within a radius of 800 miles. 500 miles and 800 miles seem to be only 300 miles apart, but if one were to draw a circle with oneself as the center, Chen Shui's perception area was more than twice of Chen Hao's. It seems like Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan from the Ling Tian sect are fighting with someone. I can't sense it clearly. They're about 800 miles to our left, and they're rapidly approaching us. They seem to be closely followed by 4 auras, Chen Shui said. Although Chen Shui did not associate with Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan, the two of them seemed to have a good relationship with Chen Hao. Moreover, Chen Shui was familiar with their auras. In Chen Shui's mind, Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan were people who helped Chen Hao greatly. Since she sensed it, she said it out loud. Let's go and take a look. Duan Yufei is not bad. As expected, just as Chen Shui expected, Chen Hao said without even thinking. Whoosh whoosh. Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan both had moderate wounds on their bodies. It was obvious that they had experienced a dangerous battle. At this moment, the two of them were flying at full speed. Less than 10 miles behind them, there were 4 cultivators from the southern sea islands in hot pursuit. Moreover, the distance was getting closer and closer. It was obvious that they were faster than the two of them. These 4 people were the same as Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan. They were all at the peak of the early nascent soul stage. Haha. Let's see where you can run to. The leading youth of the 4 actually condensed a pair of solid wings with his pure and vigorous true essence, causing his speed to suddenly soar. Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan frowned when they sensed the other party's speed. After the two entered Sky City, they were the first to meet and train together. With their battle prowess, they basically wouldn't encounter any danger in the periphery. However, when the core area of the ancient city was about to open, they rushed to meet up with the disciples of the sect. They did not expect to find a 3,000-year-old immortal fruit tree on their way there. The immortal fruit spirit tree bloomed and bore fruit once every 100 years, bearing 1 fruit each time. Although it was not a spirit fruit that could increase one's cultivation base, its value was definitely higher than that of countless top-grade spirit herbs. This was because the immortal fruit was an extremely rare spiritual fruit that could increase one's lifespan. In the eyes of young geniuses like Chen Hao, increasing one's lifespan might not be a big deal. However, for some cultivators who had reached a bottleneck in their cultivation and were nearing the end of their lifespan, it could save their lives. Even though 1 immortal fruit could only increase one's lifespan by 3 years, once a cultivator broke through to the next realm, their lifespan would be extended. How high was its value? In the cultivation world, any spirit herb that could increase one's lifespan was basically priceless. Nobody would sell it. Occasionally, it would be auctioned for a sky-high price. It was impossible to estimate the exact price. However, now not only was the immortal fruit spirit tree snatched away, but their lives were also in great danger. Although the two of them had already sent a message to the core disciples of the sect, distant water could not quench their present thirst. Seeing that there was no way to escape, the two of them knew that the only thing they could do was to risk their lives and pray that the sect's elites happened to be nearby. Swoosh swoosh. Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan held hands tightly and looked at each other before they landed on a mountain peak. Each of them swallowed a few spirit pills and raised their aura to the limit. Haha. What a waste of my energy. You should have done this long ago. Don't expect anyone to come and save you. It'll take at least a few days to reach the core area of the ancient city. No matter how fast your sect's elites are, it'll take at least 2 to 3 days, right? Moreover, they're willing to give up their training in the core area of the ancient city to save you? Haha. After seeing that the two of them were no longer running away, the young man in the lead put away his true origin wings and said confidently, "Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh." After a while, the other three people also landed on the mountain peak. The four of them split into four directions and surrounded Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan as if they were prey. "You've already gotten the spirit tree. Why do you have to kill all of us?" Duan Yufei said coldly, "If you want to kill us, at least two of you will have to die with us." "Die with us? Ha ha. Are you kidding me? Do you think the four of us will fight you to the death? I'll torture you to death no matter what. We have all the time in the world. Since we've gotten the spirit tree, there's no need for us to go to the dangerous core area anymore. Isn't it still cultivation there?" "Ha ha ha," the strongest young man said disdainfully when he heard Duan Yufei's words. "Brotherly, this woman is not bad. Although she's not a peerless beauty, she's still a rare beauty. You have to take it easy for me. Don't be too ruthless. Let me have some fun with her." "Fuck, I want to have fun with her too," another young man said. "Are you kidding me? So you're all into this too? Motherfucker, I didn't expect the three of you to be so famous in our archipelago. Are women really that fun? Ha ha ha. Brotherly, we naturally wouldn't dare to mess around in our Southern Sea archipelago. But what are the disciples of the Eastern continent afraid of? Women aren't just fun to play with. They have all kinds of fun. Only by experiencing it for yourself can you understand a thing or two. Of course, Brotherly is still a virgin. The three of us can have some fun with this chick. It won't be too late for Brotherly to try when we meet a beautiful virgin. Not only is the taste wonderful, it's also good for cultivation. Yin and yang blend, ha ha. Bastard." Duan Yufei was so angry that his hair stood on end. He clenched his teeth so hard that blood came out. His anger was like a volcanic eruption. Boom. His true origin, which contained monstrous anger, exploded. Duan Yufei was like a mad beast and attacked directly. "Yufei." Xia Lanlan's face was pale. Death wasn't scary. With the person she loved by her side, she would live and die with him. What was there to fear? However, what Xia Lanlan didn't expect was that the four of them were actually such scumbags. Seeing Duan Yufei attack Xia Lanlan, who originally wanted to self-detonate to avoid being humiliated, hesitated slightly and didn't do so. She fought first. Even if she died, she had to make the other party suffer a certain amount of damage. It wouldn't be too late to self-detonate at the last moment. Seeing the two of them angry, a trace of pride flashed in the depths of the four guys' eyes. This was exactly what they wanted. Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan's realm and strength were on par with them. If they really wanted to kill them, they would have to face the two's life and death counterattack. At that time, the two of them might really drag one or two of them down with them. But the two of them who had lost their minds were much simpler. Fight with them and consume their true origin. Be careful of that woman. She might drag us down with her to self-detonate. Haha. The leading youth transmitted his voice to the other three. "These four are quite sinister." In the void, Chen Hao and Chen Shui were like two cool breezes as they stared at Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan, who had already fallen into a great battle below them. Chen Shui transmitted her voice to Chen Hao. A distance of several hundred miles was a matter of minutes for the two of them at their maximum speed. When Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan landed on the mountain peak, the two of them had already arrived. It was just that they weren't in a hurry to attack. It's not that the four of them are sinister, it's that Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan are too inexperienced. It's the same for you, Chen Hao said bluntly. How am I the same? No matter what kind of battle, you can't give up until the last moment. Now, it's obvious that they already have the determination to die. This kind of situation can indeed increase their battle strength, but it's easier for them to fall into a real death trap. Last time in the Black Wind Ancient Cave, you were the same, just slightly better than them. The more dangerous it is, the calmer you have to be. It's really unnecessary for them to lose their minds because of a few words from the other party. Otherwise, with their strength, even if they die, they can drag the two of you down with them. Chen Shui pursed her lips but didn't say anything. It's time to attack. You don't have to show yourself. Wait for me for a moment. A few minutes later, Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan were already in a life-and-death situation. Chen Hao knew that he couldn't drag it on any longer. Otherwise, if Xia Lanlan self-destructed, he wouldn't be able to save her. Hiss. Chen Hao's aura appeared above Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan out of thin air. Before anyone could react, he casually swung his sword 4 times. Chen Hao didn't use the platinum sky-splitting slash. He only used the flaw of the solitary sword technique to attack, raising his strength to 80% and containing the sword essence of the second heaven. Chi. Even so, the incomparably sharp sword intent instantly pressed down from all directions. Chi. For screams, accompanied by the sound of flesh being pierced, suddenly rang out. Just a moment ago, the 4 people, who were in sight of victory, all widened their eyes and stared at Chen Hao, who was standing in the void. However, the blood spurting out from between their eyebrows made them lose consciousness instantly. They didn't even taste the pain of death. Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan, who weren't affected by Chen Hao's sword essence, also looked at the void with shock at this moment. Brother Duan, Miss Xia, I don't need your reward this time. I'll take their things. Chen Hao smiled and grabbed at the 4 corpses in the void. Immediately, their weapons and storage rings floated to Chen Hao. Be careful. Goodbye. While Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan were still in shock, Chen Hao's figure turned into a flowing light and quickly left their sight. After a long time, Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan woke up from their shocked state. They felt like they were dreaming after surviving a disaster. No matter what, they didn't expect that such a shocking reversal would happen when they were on the verge of death. Is this true? Xia Lanlan reached out to pinch Duan Yufei's face and said in disbelief. Chen Hao had only appeared for a few seconds, but the 4 experts who had forced them into a desperate situation had died just like that. We owe Brother Chen 2 lives again. Duan Yufei murmured, holding Xia Lanlan's hand, his eyes full of gratitude and joy after surviving a disaster. In his heart, he was even more shocked by Chen Hao's strength. It's 2 chapters today. I'll still write at night, but it'll be too late. In case everyone has to wait, I'll leave it to tomorrow. It'll be 4 chapters tomorrow. Chapter 291. In the blink of an eye, he killed 4 peak early-stage nascent soul super geniuses with a casual wave of his sword. What kind of concept was that? If Chen Hao was at the half-step incarnation realm, it would be fine. But he was only at the golden core realm. When they first met, although Chen Hao's battle strength was astonishing, Duan Yufei was still confident that he could defeat Chen Hao. During this period of time, Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan had both stepped into the nascent soul realm and reached the peak of early-stage nascent soul realm. Their battle strength had increased several times, and their speed of improvement was enough to be proud of. But when they saw Chen Hao's attack just now, they knew what a monster was at this moment. Whether it was Duan Yufei or Xia Lanlan, they were shocked beyond words. He really deserves you. Xia Lanlan murmured. Only Yu deserves him, right? Duan Yufei thought to himself. Although it was just a reversal of the order, the meaning was completely different from what Xia Lanlan had said. Obviously, in Duan Yufei's heart, Chen Hao was stronger and more worthy of respect. Xia Yu had a unique cultivation environment, but what about Chen Hao? He was just an ordinary youth from the secular world, who had stepped into the cultivation world step by step through his own efforts. And he had only entered a 3rd-grade sect. Even if he had the full support of the star-picking sect, he couldn't be compared to Xia Yu. But in just a few months, his growth could only be described as monstrous. Although the 2 of them had suffered a lot of injuries, they weren't fatal. After swallowing healing elixirs, it only took them half a day to recover 80% of their battle strength. The 2 of them restrained their auras and flew to the core of the ancient city at their fastest speed. There wasn't much time left, so they had to speed up. What kind of spirit tree is this? Chen Hao and Chen Shui didn't fly for too long before they found a hidden cave and entered it. In Sky City, where danger could appear at any time, the 2 of them had to be cautious. Once their true essence and physical strength were exhausted to 40%, they would stop rushing. Otherwise, once they encountered danger, their battle strength would be greatly affected. After the two of them entered the cave, Chen Hao rummaged through the four people's storage rings. In the storage ring of the young man who led the group, he took out the spirit tree that they had mentioned during their conversation. When Chen Hao saw the spirit tree, he sensed the spirit tree's aura and asked in surprise, "Immortal fruit spirit tree?" When Chen Hao's eyes widened in surprise, Ito's voice also sounded in Chen Hao's mind. "Yes, it's the immortal fruit tree." After a while, Chen Shui said with great certainty. Chen Shui saw extremely detailed records of heaven and earth spiritual objects in the sect, which almost included all the spiritual medicines in the world. It was 100 times richer than what Chen Hao had seen in the sect's information. What's the use? It seems like the heaven and earth spirit chi here isn't very dense, Chen Hao asked as he stared at the immortal fruit tree, which was about 30 meters tall. When Chen Shui explained the magical use and value of the immortal fruit tree, Chen Hao was a little disappointed. However, it soon turned into excitement. It was useless to him, but its value was high. Quickly put it away. If you can put it near the spirit spring. With the nourishment of the spirit spring, it will grow faster. Yes, after it blossoms and bears fruit, I'll give you the first fruit, Chen Hao said. Although Chen Shui did not contribute, the two of them had gone through the trial together. Therefore, they had to share what was needed. As he spoke, he put the immortal fruit tree into the mysterious yellow ring and placed it at the edge of the spirit spring. I don't need anything that can increase my lifespan, Chen Shui said. If you sell it, you'll get a lot of primal crystal stones. I don't lack them. You can keep them for yourself. Ahem. Sister Fu, you don't have to be polite with me. I won't be polite, Chen Hao said with a smile. I'm not rich. Sister, I'll accept it. As long as it's for my cultivation, my sect. My mother will provide it to me, Chen Shui said. She almost said the word sect. Fortunately, she stopped in time. Although Chen Shui was certain that Chen Hao would not discover her secret, it was better to be cautious. Moreover, she had told Chen Hao that she was a rogue cultivator. That's good. Quickly recover. Oh, right, if you have any information on spirit herbs, ores, and so on, give me a copy. Otherwise, I won't know if I come across any treasures in the future, Chen Hao said. The information on the star-picking sect is a little shabby. I didn't bring it with me. I'll give it to you when we get out. Okay. In the blink of an eye, another 7 days had passed. There was only 1 day left before the core ancient city area would open. At this moment, there were 1,000 people at the entrance of the core ancient city area. They were divided into 3 small areas and gathered within a 100-mile radius. There was a clear mark between this 100-mile radius and the surrounding space. It was as though a faint film of light was shrouded in it that shot up to the sky. It could be seen from tens of thousands of miles away. Obviously, this 100-mile radius was the only entrance to the core ancient city area after it opened. As time passed, people from the 3 forces were still arriving one after another. However, at this speed, there would definitely be less than 1,500 people by the time it opened. It should be known that a total of 3,000 people had stepped into Sky City. Where did the remaining half go? Obviously, there were only 2 results. They were either dead or too scared to come. Everyone knew that Sky City only had 3 months of training time. The first month was to test the results and strength of the disciples with similar combat strength, and teleport them to the same area. In the second month, the entire Sky City, except for the core of the ancient city, would disappear. In the third month, the core of the ancient city would open, and it was also the most important month for Sky City. The core ancient city area was actually a huge space with a radius of 100,000 miles. It was also the real holy land for cultivation in Sky City. Not only was the spiritual energy of heaven and earth extremely rich, the entire space was filled with the mysterious aura of the heavenly Tao. It was very useful for cultivators to break through their own heavenly Tao. Moreover, in the huge space with a radius of 100,000 miles, there were some ancient palaces floating in the void. Whether one could enter it or not depended on one's opportunity, luck, and strength. Those with weak strength basically did not dare to try to enter the palaces. At most, they would choose a corner and secretly cultivate. Even so, they might face a fatal disaster. This was the Battle of Providence between the eastern and western continents and the Southern Sea Archipelago. Who would be soft-hearted? Especially after killing people, they could obtain wealth. Many people wanted to do this. The area where the eastern mainland disciples were at was beyond the expectations of the Southern Sea Archipelago and the western mainland disciples. This time, there were actually more than 350 people, which was dozens more than the western mainland. The Southern Sea Archipelago had the most people with more than 400 people. In such a situation, nobody dared to act recklessly. Otherwise, both sides would suffer heavy casualties. Moreover, the ancient city area was about to open. Senior Brother Zhao, don't tell me those fellows from the Southern Sea Archipelago are guarding Lan Lan and Junior Brother Duan? At this moment, among the close to 20 Ling Tian sect disciples, a disciple at the peak of the mastery nascent soul stage asked the person beside him through voice transmission as he stared at the Southern Sea Archipelago powerhouses who were wandering outside the light screen. This disciple was the Ling Tian sect's core disciple, Xia Xiaodao. He was also the direct descendant of the sect leader, Xia Lingfeng. He was Xia Lanlan and Xia Yuyu's cousin. I don't think so. The four people who were chasing after junior sister Lanlan and junior brother Duan were killed by Chen Hao in an instant. Although junior brother Duan didn't say what treasure it was, since the four of them obtained the treasure and were confident of winning, it's impossible for them to tell the sect, said the disciple called Senior Brother Zhao. This person was the leader of the Ling Tian sect this time, Zhao Yuanqing. He was also second only to Xia Yuyu among the core disciples. The aura emitted from his body was obviously that he had advanced to the half-step incarnation stage. Although he was not as powerful as Chu Qingtian, Gu Xing, and Wu Ruochen, his combat strength was definitely in the top 10 among all the eastern mainland disciples. After he received Xia Lanlan and Duan Yufei's message, he went to their location without hesitation. However, he was too far away and could not make it in time. Fortunately, it did not take long before he received news from the two of them again. They said that the danger had been resolved, and that they were saved by Chen Hao. Only then did he return the way he came with doubts. He was confused because he could not figure out how Chen Hao, who was only at the golden core stage before entering the sky, could save Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan who were at the early nascent soul stage. It's good that he's not. Yi Shanshui is the #1 core disciple in the Southern Sea Archipelago. His combat strength is unfathomable. If we're targeted by him, we'll be in trouble. Xia Xiaodao said, Lanlan and junior brother Duan should be here soon. Fuck, don't tell me they don't dare to come. Yu Chengfeng, who was wandering at the edge and carefully sensing every person who came over, said fiercely when he saw that the ancient city was about to open. Until now, Chen Hao and Chen Shui had yet to appear. Jian Wufei did appear, but unfortunately, even with Yi Shanshui around, he could not do anything to Jian Wufei for now. This was something he did not expect. Jian Wufei's sect, the Tianhe sect, was one of the rank 9 sects in the western continent, but it was not the strongest sect. However, when Jian Wufei arrived, she was welcomed by the strongest cultivators of the rank 9 sects in the western continent, including the strongest sect, the Sacred Light sect. What did this mean? If Jian Wufei wanted to fight, it would mean that the western continent and the southern sea islands were at war. This time, the eastern continent, which seemed to be on the rise, would definitely take advantage of the situation. Therefore, even Yi Shanshui did not dare to make a move at this time. He could only place all his hopes on Chen Hao and Chen Shui. Yu Chengfeng knew that Chen Hao was only a disciple of a rank 3 sect. During this time, even though he did not find Chen Hao and Chen Shui, he had killed dozens of Eastern Continent disciples. From their mouths, he knew that Chen Hao was indeed a disciple of a rank 3 sect, and Chen Shui was just a rogue cultivator. With Yi Shanshui's status, as long as he said that he only wanted to deal with Chen Hao and Chen Shui, the people of the Eastern Continent would not stand up for him. After all, Chen Hao had killed the top geniuses of the 4 rank 9 sects in the Southern Sea Islands. Just as Yu Chengfeng was cursing, 2 figures came from afar. It was a man and a woman. First update. Chapter 292. They're all at the nascent soul stage, not them. Yi Shanshui had already spoken when Yu Qingfeng had yet to lock onto their auras. It was impossible to trigger the heavenly punishment in the Sky City. It was not a problem to go from the early stage to the intermediate stage, to the mastery stage, or even to the half-step nascent soul stage. It was an undeniable fact that Chen Hao was at the golden core stage. It was Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan who had rushed over. Let's go in, okay. In the void hundreds of miles away, two faint gusts of wind drifted between heaven and earth. Following their conversation, they silently began to move towards the entrance of the ancient city. The two of them were Chen Hao and Chen Shui. The two of them had been here for a long time, but they did not enter. They had no choice. Their strength was inferior, so they could only temporarily avoid it. Yi Shanshui's aura was really powerful. Moreover, it was not just Yi Shanshui alone. Chen Hao and Chen Shui knew very well that they were not Jian Wufei. If they were to appear, no one in the eastern continent would help them except for the Ling Tian sect. With just the two of them, it was absolutely impossible for them to fight against Yu Qingfeng's group. Even if it was Yi Shanshui alone, the two of them would not be able to fight against him. The gap between a half-step nascent soul stage genius was too big. Therefore, they could only conceal their aura. Fortunately, the two of them had cultivated the heart technique to merge with everything in the world. Otherwise, they would not be able to enter the core of the ancient city. Hiss hiss, at the outermost area where the Southern Sea Archipelago disciples gathered, Chen Hao and Chen Shui quietly chose a corner far away from the crowd and entered the light screen without anyone noticing. The reason why they chose the Southern Sea Archipelago and not the Eastern continent was naturally because they had their own plans. Be careful with your senses. You don't have to sense those at the half-step nascent soul stage. After the two of them stopped, Chen Hao transmitted his voice to Chen Shui. I know, don't worry, Chen Shui said confidently. This was the only thing she was stronger than Chen Hao in. When Chen Shui began to sense, Chen Hao also carefully released a trace of undetectable soul fluctuation and began to sense the auras of the few sects in the Southern Sea Archipelago. Know yourself and know your enemy. After a period of observation, the two of them were clear about the experts they might face after entering the core of the ancient city. As long as Yu Qingfeng came into contact with someone, the two of them had to control their aura. They did not need to consider the half-step incarnation realm because even if they encountered one, they could only hide. However, he didn't let go of any nascent soul realm cultivators in the middle stage, late stage, or even the peak of the late stage. A super genius at the pinnacle of the nascent soul stage was not someone that the two of them could match up to. However, if they were to encounter one, they would still have a chance to launch a sneak attack. You want to kill us? Then you better pray that you stay away from us. Although they couldn't fight them head-on, their powerful perception and concealment skills made them natural killers. Being forced to hide the head and show the tail was a very stifling matter. Therefore, it was impossible for him to not get some interest back. What's more, this was a chance to make a fortune. In less than a few minutes, Chen Hao and Chen Shui had already grasped the breath of all the targets. Soon after, the two of them silently arrived at the area where the Western mainland disciples were located. Junior sister Lanlan, junior brother Duan, you're finally here. What about Chen Hao? Is he not with you? When Xiao Lanlan and Duan Yufei arrived among the Ling Tian sect disciples, everyone surrounded them. Zhao Yuanqing lowered his voice and asked. Nope. Senior brother Zhao, everyone, let's not talk about him first. We'll talk about it when we get back to the sect. Duan Yufei lowered his voice and said solemnly. After that, he hurriedly sent a voice transmission to Xiao Lanlan. Lanlan, don't look around. Oh. Xiao Lanlan quickly retracted her gaze. What's going on? Zhao Yuanqing frowned slightly and asked through voice transmission. Many people in the Southern Sea Archipelago and the Western mainland want to deal with Chen Hao. Even we can't protect him. Duan Yufei said through voice transmission at that moment. Initially, Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan did not know about this at all. However, when they were about 10,000 miles away from the core area, they found out. This was because Chen Hao had borrowed 2 pairs of communication talismans from him and Xiao Lanlan. When they invited the two of them together, Chen Hao briefly explained the reason why he did not enter the entrance with them. However, at that moment, Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan did not understand how Chen Hao could hide from their eyes. Fuck, it's about to open. Chen Hao, that brat probably won't dare to come. Humph, with such a temperament, there's nothing to fear. When the light screen began to violently tremble, Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei, who was sitting in the crowd but still had their eyes locked on the outside, cursed out loud and thought disdainfully in their hearts. Jian Wufei, who had comprehended the will of the Sword Dao, had notified the people in the sect to search for Chen Hao. However, she did not request for the people in the sect to kill him. She would climb back up from where she fell. Only by defeating Chen Hao with her own strength and killing him would it be in line with her will of the Sword Dao. At the same time, Chu Qingtian of the eastern mainland's Yuan Gate and Gu He, who was second only to Gu Xing in the Floating Mist sect, frowned slightly. After entering the city in the sky, they had been looking for Chen Hao and Chen Shui. However, the two of them seemed to have disappeared. None of the disciples in the sect had seen them. Chu Qingtian, Gu He, and the others had guessed that the people Yu Chengfeng was waiting for were Chen Hao and Chen Shui. After all, with Yu Chengfeng's cultivation and aura, it was very likely that he was in the same region as Chen Hao and Chen Shui. However, they could not be sure. As such, they had been paying attention to Yu Chengfeng and the #1 expert of the Southern Sea Islands, Yi Shanshui. At this moment, when Yu Chengfeng couldn't help but mention Chen Hao's name, they were finally certain of their guesses. Just as the mysterious aura of the light screen was getting thicker and thicker, a few exclamations suddenly sounded from a corner where the eastern mainland cultivators were, attracting everyone's attention. Isn't that Chen Hao and Chen Shui? Why did they suddenly appear? I thought something had happened to them. I didn't expect them to be here already. What powerful concealment skills. The few disciples that were closest to Chen Hao and Chen Shui discussed with surprised expressions. Chen Hao and Chen Shui looked at each other and revealed a faint smile. The two of them had expected to encounter such a situation when the light screen was activated. The miraculous teleportation light pillar was still too mysterious for them. It was absolutely impossible for them to maintain the state of merging with all things in the world. Fuck. It's him. Brother Yi, Brother Han, that's Chen Hao. He's the one who killed Sheng Guanyang, Han Ji, and the others. Yu Qingfeng's furious voice suddenly sounded before Chen Hao and Chen Shui's aura was released. What a beautiful woman. Yi Shanshui's eyes instantly locked on Chen Shui, who was in a blue dress. Although she was covered by a black veil, the translucent veil could not hide her beautiful little face. Killed Sheng Guanyang, Han Ji, and the others? Yu Qingfeng's angry voice was transmitted into everyone's ears. All the disciples in the Southern Sea Islands who didn't know about it opened their eyes wide in shock. Who were Sheng Guanyang and Han Ji? They were top geniuses who were similar to Yu Chengfeng. Almost in an instant, everyone thought of who the two words, waiting for someone, could be. Even the disciples from the Western continent and the Eastern continent were shocked when they heard the names of Sheng Guanyang and Han Ji. Especially the disciples from the Eastern continent, they gasped in astonishment. Although they didn't know Sheng Guanyang and Han Ji, they were super geniuses who ranked at the top of the test. Even such geniuses were killed by Chen Hao. What did that mean? Everyone from the three forces was surprised. However, before they could react, the dazzling light instantly enveloped everyone. Hiss, 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 hiss. More than 1,000 cultivators disappeared at the same time in the violent spatial fluctuations. Phew! The transmission this time was beyond Chen Hao's expectation. Although he had no concept of time and seemed to have lost his consciousness, the moment he walked out of the transmission, Chen Hao clearly felt that the whole transmission process was definitely more than any of the previous ones. It was probably more than 10 minutes. After letting out a long breath, Chen Hao began to look at the surrounding space. There were continuous mountains, colorful clouds, dense forests, and all kinds of strange flowers and plants. In the distance, he seemed to vaguely see a mirage-like palace. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the entire space was purer and denser than outside. Moreover, the aura of demonic beasts was stronger too. What made Chen Hao even happier was that the entire space contained a mysterious aura. No wonder it's the best place to cultivate in the Sky City. In a month, I might be able to improve my grasp of the law of heaven. Buzz. At this moment, the communication talisman that Chen Hao borrowed from Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan vibrated violently. With a smile, Chen Hao crushed the communication talisman and received the information in it. Not only could the communication talisman transmit information, but it also had a magical positioning function. Of course, the value of this kind of communication talisman was much higher than that of ordinary communication talismans. The reason why Chen Hao borrowed it was to meet up with Chen Shui. After all, in the transmission of the Sky City, even if they hugged each other, they would be separated. Whoosh! Whoosh! Chen Hao and Chen Shui, who were nearly 10,000 miles apart, turned into gusts of wind after locking onto each other's direction, and converged with each other at lightning speed. The ancient city area was only 100,000 miles in radius, and more than 1,000 people were scattered in it. In fact, it was just a drop in the ocean, but that was referring to ordinary people. For over 1,000 Golden Core Realm and Nascent Soul Realm cultivators, it was rather crowded. Especially for Chen Hao and Chen Shui, who were besieged on all sides, they had to be extra careful. Everyone in the South Sea Archipelago, you should have seen Chen Hao and Chen Shui. If you see either of them, inform me immediately. I, Yi Shanshui, will not treat you unfairly. As the leader of the South Sea Archipelago, Yi Shanshui did not need Chengfen's urging this time, and directly used the group transmission talisman. Chapter 294. Yi Shanshui's promiscuity was well known in the Southern Sea Archipelago. Up until now, he had ruined countless beautiful girls. He even had more than 10 Dao partners. Even when he came to the Sky City this time, he had 2 beautiful Dao partners with him. Compared to him, Yu Chengfeng was not on the same level at all. Yi Shanshui was tempted the moment he saw Chen Shui. How could he let go of such a beautiful woman? The Western Mainland's Heavenly River sect and people related to Jian Wufei were also looking for Chen Hao and Chen Shui. However, they were not as exaggerated as Yi Shanshui. Of course, the Eastern Mainland's Chu Qingtian, Gu He, and the others were no exception. Buzz. Just when Chen Hao was flying, the communication talisman vibrated again. This made Chen Hao slightly puzzled. However, when he took out the communication talisman, he immediately understood. Duan Yufei had given him this communication talisman before he entered the Sky City. This should be a message for the Ling Tian sect disciples to gather. Chen Hao hesitated slightly but did not break it in the end. Once he did, the leader of the Ling Tian sect would know his location. Of course, he would also know the leader's location. However, Chen Hao did not know him at all. He did not even know what kind of person he was. To be safe, he did not open it. Of course, the most important thing was that Chen Hao did not have the slightest intention of seeking shelter from the Ling Tian sect. Moreover, they could not protect him anyway. In less than an hour, Chen Hao and Chen Shui, who were not far away, separated from each other. Otherwise, both of them would not be able to sense each other's presence. Soon, both of them locked onto each other's aura and gathered together. Let's go. We've been locked onto in such a short time. Let's leave this place quickly, Chen Hao said immediately when he saw Chen Shui in a blue dress. Yes. Chen Shui nodded her head with a solemn expression. Her perception was more powerful than Chen Hao's. She knew that she and Chen Hao had only released their auras for a short while, but they were locked onto by 3 auras. Moreover, they were closing in on them at a shocking speed. It had to be said that there were too many people who wanted the 2 of them dead. In this space that was only 100,000 miles wide, there were probably hundreds of people who were their enemies. Moreover, there were many experts that the 2 of them could not fight against. Chen Hao, this place is only 50,000 kilometers in radius. It's really too small, and we have too many enemies. Unless we meet someone who is alone and not that strong, we can't do anything at all. Rather than running around to avoid being hunted down, it's better to find a secluded place to cultivate. This place is undoubtedly the most suitable place for cultivation, Chen Shui said. Indeed, our strength is still too weak. Increasing our strength is the key. It was estimated that all the disciples of the large sects were gathering here. They should also know that cultivating here was the most important thing. I believe that no one will come looking for us. Let's do that. Chen Hao responded. When Chen Hao entered this space, he already had this plan in mind. Although he would definitely be able to kill quite a few of those fellows, he would still be able to assassinate them. But other than being able to obtain some things, there was not much practical use. Rather than wasting time on such meaningless battles, it was better to use this precious 1 month to improve their own strength. Those ancient palaces, let's not go? Chen Shui said. We can't go even if we want to. There are probably not many of these palaces. It must be the places that those 9th-rank sects fought for. It's just some treasures and secret techniques. We don't want them. Let's go. Hiss. The two of them merged into the heaven and earth and quickly went into the distance. Chen Hao said it casually, but in fact, he was very depressed. If he was a nascent soul cultivator, how could he be so depressed? Strength was everything. Only the fastest way to improve one's strength was the way to go. Gone? Fuck. It's too difficult to find them with such powerful concealment skills. What a waste of energy. It's better to meet up with the people from the sects and cultivate in peace. Sensing the disappearance of Chen Hao and Chen Shui, within 200 to 300 miles, 3 masters at the peak of the nascent soul stage in 3 directions said secretly. The 3 of them were all masters of the Southern Sea Islands. And they were also the ones who received Yi Shanshui's call. Of course, they just happened to sense Chen Hao and Chen Shui's aura nearby. In such a holy place for cultivation and a place full of danger, no one was willing to waste energy on looking for people. What's more, they were very clear about how powerful Chen Hao and Chen Shui's concealment skills were. After Chen Hao and Chen Shui found a hidden cave, they carefully opened up 2 more exits from the cave, and sealed all the entrances and set up layers of restrictions. After doing all this, the 2 of them entered their respective caves and immersed themselves in cultivating and comprehending without any distractions. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Chi. In the huge cave, Chen Hao had already excavated a huge space with a radius of thousands of feet, and set up layers of seals and aura concealment enchantments. At this moment, Chen Hao stood in the middle of the cave and swung his sword. Stab, reverse strike, reverse chop, spin swing, sweep, side slash. Every sword was stabbed out with all his strength, and they were all the basic sword moves of the solitary sword technique. They were all fused swords. What he wanted to do was to completely fuse the solitary sword technique, platinum sky splitting slash, sword intent, and space attribute mysteries. Every sword and every movement must be perfect and become his instinct. Not only did he need to comprehend it with his brain, but he also needed to comprehend it with his body. Only in this way could it become his instinctive reaction. The reason for this was that Chen Hao realized it when he was facing the fast sword attack of Sword Dance Fei. If he could do this at that time, why would he need to focus on catching the opponent's flaws? There was no need to waste any time on catching the opponent's moves, and he could naturally make the most accurate instinctive attack. This was the highest level of the solitary sword technique. Such a consumption was absolutely enormous. After every 9 swords, Chen Hao's energy would be exhausted. It had to be said that following the increase of his level, Chen Hao's attacks became stronger and stronger, and the consumption of energy also became greater and greater. 9 swords of fused swords was his limit. Luckily, Chen Hao had a large amount of spirit spring. The recovery time was greatly reduced. Huff! After exhausting his strength once again and exhausting all his energy and true essence, Chen Hao let out a long breath and jumped naked into the spirit spring that was 10 feet in radius and 10 feet deep. It's been 10 days, and the sword intent has only improved a little. It seems that the heavenly Dao law here has no effect on the sword intent. Only fighting can improve it. What Chen Hao wanted to improve the most was the sword intent, but in 10 days, although the fusion of the basic sword moves of the solitary sword technique was still not perfect, it had improved a lot. The true essence of the space attribute, and even the true essence of the wind attribute that Chen Hao did not cultivate, had improved a lot. There was a faint trend of a breakthrough. The density of true essence had also increased by about 10%, faintly reaching the limit of Chen Hao's half-step nascent soul stage. but the sword intent was still at the second level of the sword path. It's not bad. Chen Hao slowly closed his eyes. When he recovered his true essence, it was also when he fully sensed the heavenly Tao law. In the crazy cultivation, another 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Voila! Chen Hao jumped out of the spirit spring naked. No. I must fight. Chen Hao's eyes shone with a strong fighting spirit as he gritted his teeth and said, after 20 days of crazy cultivation, he clearly felt that his progress was getting smaller and smaller. Faintly, he had reached his limit in all aspects and entered a bottleneck state. There was not much meaning in continuing to cultivate like this. Only fighting. Hiss. After sending out a wisp of his mind, Chen Hao, dressed in a blue dress, appeared in front of him not long after. Her long hair was wet like a lotus flower emerging from the water. I've reached the bottleneck and need to fight. What about you? So fast. Chen Shui was slightly surprised. I'll accompany you. If you haven't reached your limit, you don't have to accompany me. Just wait for me here. There won't be a problem. Chen Hao said confidently. Well then be careful. Chen Shui said after a slight hesitation. She was very clear that although her cultivation realm was higher than Chen Hao's, her true combat strength was definitely inferior to Chen Hao's at this moment. Furthermore, there was a gap. Even if he encountered a half-step incarnation realm, as long as he did not fall into an encirclement, Chen Hao should not be in danger. If you have a situation here, send a message to me immediately. After Chen Hao finished talking, he directly turned into a stream of light and disappeared in front of Chen Shui. Leaving Chen Shui and going 10,000 miles or so, Chen Hao released the aura around him without the slightest scruple. Come on, as long as it's not half-step incarnation realm, I'll die for me. Chen Hao said with lofty sentiments in his heart. He wanted to kill the demonic beasts and obtain the spiritual herbs. Unfortunately, 20 days had passed, and the aura of the demonic beasts seemed to be very weak. Along the way, he did not encounter any cultivators. Needless to say, most of the treasures that could be plundered had been plundered. Moreover, most of the cultivators should have found a place to cultivate and entered it. What he could look forward to now was that after someone sensed his aura, they would come over on their own. Secondly, he would go deep into the core area where the demonic beasts were extremely powerful. Lastly, he would try to enter the palace. Entering the palace was obviously not possible at this moment. If there were no accidents, it would have long been occupied by the powerful sections. Hiss. Chen Hao had been there for a full hour. As Chen Hao continued to go deeper, there were still no cultivators who came to find trouble. This made Chen Hao, who urgently needed to fight, want to take the initiative to find the hidden cultivators. But in the end he did not do so. After all, he did not have the potential to be a pure evil person. Just as Chen Hao was about to enter the core of this space and see a huge palace in the distance, a strange fluctuation suddenly appeared in his mind, as if it was calling out to him from the unseen world. Is it you guys? Chen Hao could not help but ask the mysterious existence and treasure hunter's sword spirit in his mind. What are we doing? Could it be my opportunity? Hearing the answers of the two fellows, Chen Hao's eyes suddenly shone with a hint of excitement. Third update. The fourth update might be a little late. Brothers and sisters who can't wait will see it tomorrow. We Proud Heaven are promoting it. Please give us some support, brothers and sisters. Anything is fine. Thank you. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.